Chapter 1389. The youth continued. Most of the corpses of the southern barbarians were thrown into the river nearby. The weather is hot now, and the corpses decay very quickly. It will definitely increase the amount of iron in the water. I think this might be the reason for the spread of the disease between the two armies. Hua Yuan asked him, "Is that what the young lord thinks? If not, why do you and my father have to boil the water before drinking?" He had to suspect that the current situation was part of Hua Yuan's plan. Once he opened his mouth, it was easy for the youth to say what he wanted to say next. He continued, "Previously, the allied vassals ostracized my father and allocated a bad camp. The generals were quite indignant. You knew that our camp was far from the water source and that it was not easy to get water. Why did you agree without hesitation and even sent people to dig a few wells?" The reason Hua Yuan gave was very decent. In the face of a great enemy, our army should focus on the overall situation. Such a small matter was not worth falling out and damaging the harmony. Now that he thought about it, it was frightening. Most of the Enchui soldiers' drinking water came from wells and the other half from rivers. There were fewer sick soldiers than the other vassals. The youth clenched his fists, his gaze complicated. Previously, it was you who proposed to slaughter the 4 factions of the southern barbarians. Was this a trap that you planned long ago? Ancient battles were very violent in dealing with corpses. They were either buried in pits, thrown into the river to feed the fish, or left in the wilderness. Jiang Pingji burned the corpses of both sides in every battle. In the eyes of others, it seemed like she had nothing better to do and even brought a stain on her reputation. It was one thing to burn the enemy's corpse, but she even burned the corpses of her own people. How vicious was this lord? Looking at it now, the man in front of him was even worse. Hua Yuan chuckled. They asked for it. It has nothing to do with others. I just took advantage of the situation and didn't plan it deliberately. The youth could not help but shiver. Hua Yuan continued, I thought that the southern barbarians were like grasshoppers after autumn and wouldn't be able to jump around for long. Who knew that they were like a centipede that died but didn't fall down? Even when they were about to die, they still caused trouble. Of course, I had to think of other countermeasures. The youth asked him, what about the allied forces? The southern barbarians deserve to die, but the allied soldiers? Hua Yuan looked at the youth with some disappointment. Isn't this for the sake of the lord and the young master? He said, once the southern barbarians are eliminated, can the alliance still maintain the current situation? Young master, you might as well refer to Dongqing's Huangshuwei conference. During the conference, there was a lot of scheming, and after the conference, it was a battle to the death. His Highness's power was not considered top-notch among the Nanqing feudal vassals. If he wanted to survive in this chaotic world, he naturally could not let the enemy gain the upper hand. Now is a good opportunity. The youth's mind was in a mess. Hua Yuan shook his head inwardly. In the war between the feudal lords, it was either you die or I die. The barbarian-slaying alliance was united by external forces. Once the external forces disappeared, internal strife was inevitable. And Chui's provisions were richer than the other feudal vassals, so how could others watch him grow? Only by striking first and gaining the upper hand could one maintain an invincible position. The next day, the teenager found out that Hua Yuan had purposely befriended Yan Lin, Yang Tao's advisor, and accidentally revealed the source of the epidemic. The youth was even more confused. Mr. Hua Yuan had just said that he was going to weaken the others the day before. Why was he helping Yang Tao the next day? Hua Yuan sneered in response. If Yang Tao dies, who will resist the ambitious Lu Shi? Nanqing and Dongqing were separated by Yang Tao. To Enchui, Jiang Pingji's threat was far greater than Yang Tao's. Nanqing had been ravaged by the 4 factions of Nanman, and its vitality had long been greatly damaged. Although Dongqing was also weak, Jiang Pingji had basically unified it. She recuperated and trained her troops for a few years. Wouldn't it be easy to defeat Nanqing? Yang Tao's existence was very necessary. He could buy some buffer time for Enchui at the critical moment. The medical skills of the four factions of Nanman were backward, and the logistics of the military camp were simple and crude. They could not withstand the ravages of the epidemic. When the midsummer passed and the weather turned cold, the number of people killed by the epidemic in the four factions of Nanman reached 200,000. The situation of the barbarian slaying alliance was slightly better. Yang Tao had found the source of the epidemic. The military doctors isolated the source of infection and slowly brought the disease under control. Even so, the alliance still suffered heavy losses. Only the two feudal vassals, Enchui and Yang Tao, managed to preserve their vitality. While the feudal lords of Nanqing were scheming and guarding against each other, Jiang Pingji was busy like a spinning top. Thanks to Madame Tao and the others' selfless contributions, Jiang Pingji became rich again. Money could only be earned if it was spent. It would only rust and gather dust if it was kept in the storeroom. Adhering to this philosophy, she started dozens of construction projects in one go. They ranged from building houses and roads to building reservoirs, repairing rivers and reclaiming wastelands. Not only could they attract refugees and improve public security, but they could also provide a large number of jobs for the people. As long as there was work and money to be earned, which commoner would be stupid enough to rebel and cause trouble? They were used to Jiang Pingji's warlike state. Every day, she was either fighting a war or on the way to fighting a war. What about now? The content of the live stream changed from a hot-blooded fight for hegemony to a heartwarming scene of farming. The streamer who went against the heavens and the earth stayed at home to manage her territory. She was not like the streamer they knew. No matter how the salted fish roared, Jiang Pingji was indifferent. She continued to spend money like it was dirt. Speaking of spending money, one had to mention the branch of the Golden Scale Academy. Last year, during the enrollment expansion, Jiang Pingji secretly allowed the children of wealthy merchants and country gentlemen to enter the Golden Scale Academy. There were not many students, but those students were carefully selected. These children studied in the Golden Scale Academy for almost a year. Their learning effects were remarkable. More and more people secretly inquired when the Golden Scale Academy would continue to enroll so that they could fight for opportunities for their children to enter. Jiang Pingji felt that the time was right. She took the opportunity to propose the expansion of the Golden Scale Academy and the establishment of two branches. The Golden Scale Academy was the blood and sweat of Fengren, Qingqing, and Yuanjing. If she wanted to expand, she naturally had to discuss with them. The three big shots had no objections. After a few years, the academy had explored a more mature teaching plan. It was not a big problem to establish a branch. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, "It's the fortune of all the students in the world that you are so understanding and reasonable." Master Yuanjing joked, "In my opinion, Master Lanting's generosity is the fortune of all the students in the world." The Golden Scale Academy was a teaching institution that had no income. The students' uniforms, textbooks, brushes, ink, daily expenses, and the teachers' salaries were all paid for by the government. There were also gifts during festivals. The land and buildings of the academy were also paid for by Jiang Pingji. Master Yuanjing had run an academy before. Of course, he knew how huge the annual expenses of the Golden Scale Academy were. After confirming their gazes, Jiang Pingji was undoubtedly a nouveau riche. Speaking of this, I have something to discuss with you. Now that the treasury is abundant, it won't be a problem to build 3 to 5 branches, but this is not a long-term plan to maintain the academy's operations. I have a plan here, and I'd like to hear your opinions. Feng Ren and the others heard her and their hearts skipped a beat. What did she mean? Did she want the academy to transform and become self-sufficient? Chapter 1390. Feng Ren didn't care. If the Golden Scale Academy was reformed, it would benefit the gentry. Master Yuan Jing and the others had to consider the ordinary students in the academy. Jiang Pingji saw through their thoughts at a glance. She couldn't help but chuckle and dispel their worries. Last year, in addition to the fixed number of students, there were an additional 50 places for external recruitment. Do you gentlemen still remember this? Feng Ren and the others had a strange expression when she mentioned this. Why? Because the students who were specially recruited, apart from their talents, their family wealth was also a very important indicator. Those students could be described in one sentence: they were so poor that they had nothing but money. Scholars were more virtuous, especially those who devoted themselves to education. When they received Jiang Pingji's order, they were somewhat reluctant. Education was a noble and great cause. How could they tarnish it with dirty money? They should treat money as dirt. Ching Ching said, I remember. Those children are talented and diligent. They didn't disgrace the Golden Scale Academy. If those students were rich, they wouldn't let Jiang Pingji do whatever she wanted even if they had power and influence, let alone money. Jiang Pingji said, it's good that you remember. Then you should also remember that those students are well off. Master Yuan Jing smiled bitterly and said, what do you want to say? You can say it directly. Why do you keep us guessing? If she wasn't the Lord, she would be easily beaten. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, I mean to hold a business fair. Only the highest bidder is qualified to invest in the construction of the branch of the Golden Scale Academy. The few of them thought that they had misheard. Not to mention what the business fair was, which idiot would take the initiative to bid for such a qualification? Hearing Jiang Pingji's words, it seemed like a good thing that others couldn't even beg for. Feng Ren asked uncertainly. Only the highest bidder is qualified to invest in the construction of the academy. Jiang Pingji asked suspiciously, yes. Is there anything wrong? There were so many things wrong. They couldn't even complain. Jiang Pingji said again, don't doubt me. If the news is released, there will definitely be people kneeling and begging to build an academy for us. They didn't say a word so as not to break Jiang Pingji's daydream. She continued, the person who invests in the construction of a branch of the Golden Scale Academy will be given the title of an honorary dean after the completion of the branch. Not only will the government commend the person in front of the public and give him a plaque, they will also support the business under his name. For example, in a competition of the same trade, with the same goods and the same price, one side is a shop run by an ordinary merchant, and the other side is a righteous merchant certified by the government. Who do you think the people will choose? Feng Ren and the others were frightened. Was there such a thing? Scholars, farmers, merchants, and merchants are at the bottom. This group was often criticized by others. If they were given such a chance, wouldn't the students from the branch schools be grateful to this honorary headmaster? Will future generations benefit from this? Jiang Pingji smiled. The government has praised the merchants, so the people naturally believe in their business. How could those shrewd merchants not see these benefits? For the rich, precious things were often not things that could be bought with money, but things that could not be bought with money. It was true that merchants were rich, but no matter how rich they were, could they buy the respect of the world? Their descendants were born with a lower status, let alone respect them. If one became the honorary headmaster, it was equivalent to making friends with the potential of the academy. How powerful would their connections and hidden wealth be? After Jiang Pingji's guidance, Feng Ren and the others also thought of this. They could not help but laugh at themselves for being dull. They said that no fool in the world would be willing to do such a stupid thing, but they did not know that this was really a good thing that was worth fighting for. Feng Ren's political sense did not deteriorate. He keenly grasped the main point. Lord Lanting, are you planning to support the merchants? I know what you are worried about, but supporting the merchants is something that must be done. People live to live a better life. Scholars, farmers, merchants, and merchants, who doesn't do this? Jiang Pingji said. Supporting the merchants does not mean that we condone them. I think it is to regulate and correct them. Take this time as an example. The merchants who are qualified must ensure that the shops they run are legal, that the goods they sell are clean, and that the prices they sell to the public are normal. There will not be any phenomenon of maliciously jacking up prices, malicious competition, or harming the people. The outside world had a bad impression of the merchants. Apart from suppressing this group being politically correct, the merchants themselves had many problems. It was true that Jiang Pingji planned to support the merchants, but she would not allow them to embarrass themselves. Feng Ren said, if that's the case, it's not bad. He had no reason to object. It was beneficial to others and himself. However, Feng Ren continued, if the branch is handed over to them to manage this, Jiang Pingji said, Master, you misunderstood me. The branch will still follow the rules of the main school, and the treatment will be the same as the main school. The dean and teachers will also be selected by the teachers. The source of students will be a little more relaxed. Half of them will be orphans of heroes, and the other half will be recruited from the outside. Even if Jiang Pingji supported the poor, she would not shut out people from other classes. Compared to outshining others, she preferred letting 100 flowers bloom together. Feng Ren's side was dealt with. Master Yuanjing had something to say. Lord Lanting, where do you plan to choose the branch? The Golden Scale Academy's foundation is still shallow. If it is too far away, it is hard to guarantee that no one will do something that appears to be obedient but secretly opposed. Although it is a branch, it cannot be tarnished. The management of the academy should be stricter. Jiang Pingji said, both branches will be built in Wanzhou. One will be built in Xiangyang County, and the other will be built in Shangjing Prefecture. Both places were under Jiang Pingji's nose. Who would dare to cause trouble? Feng Ren smiled. That's good. There were many aristocratic families in Xiangyang County, but not every aristocratic family was a local tyrant. Many aristocratic families were rich, but the branch families lived a hard life. The branch of the Golden Scale Academy was built there, and the children of the branch families who were down and out would definitely fight for a place. This would unknowingly alleviate the conflict between the aristocratic families and Jiang Pingji. Shangjing Prefecture used to be the capital of Dongqing, but it was destroyed by an earthquake. Jiang Pingji rebuilt the Wanzhou Prefecture there, attracting ordinary people and refugees to settle there. After 1 or 2 years of business support, the place was revitalized. In general, Shangjing Prefecture was the territory of ordinary people, and it was also one of Jiang Pingji's strongholds. The branch was built there, and the students recruited from the outside were naturally children from ordinary backgrounds. The two branches balanced the 3 classes, and they did not offend anyone. Other than that, Lord Lanting, do you have any other requirements? Jiang Pingji added, the students recruited from the outside must be half male and half female. Do you have any objections? Feng Ren and the others smiled bitterly. Who dared to say, I have any objections, in front of a female lord? Looking at Jiang Pingji's stance, she would definitely promote a large number of women to become officials in the future. Anyone who objected would be going against her. After doing the ideological work of these few big shots, Jiang Pingji was relieved to reveal the matter of attracting investment. Chapter 1391. Has Lu Shi gone crazy from poverty? Does he really think he's the son of heaven and everyone has to give in to him and help him? Jiang Pingji was full of confidence, but the public opinion was not optimistic about her plan. Most of them were pessimistic, and some were sarcastic. Who knows? She's now the one who holds the final say in Dongqing. Won't she be allowed to be arrogant for a few days? This topic had become the favorite topic of gossip recently. Regardless of whether it was a peddler or a student, they would only be satisfied if they gave some advice. Someone said, merchants pursue profits, and their bones reek of money. They can still hear the sound of money if they throw it into the water. What benefits do the people who contribute to the construction of a branch of the Golden Scale Academy get? TSK, all the good reputation and merits are taken by others. Someone mocked, how much silver does it take to build an academy? If it were me, even if I have so much money in my hands, I'd rather bury it for my descendants. How can there be such a simple-minded person in the world? Someone said, who knows, maybe there really are some people who have lost a piece of their brains and are willing to pay for the sake of flattery. Someone else said, how much does it cost to build an academy? According to the rules of the Golden Scale Academy, it should cost more than 100,000 strings of coins, right? The expenses of the students in the Golden Scale Academy are huge. Who can afford to support hundreds of students? Let's not talk about writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones. They have 3 meals a day of meat, 2 vegetables, and 1 soup. They have 3 sets of clothes for each season of the year and 100 coins of pocket money every month. Ordinary people only eat meat during festivals. It takes 3 years to sew and mend a set of clothes. Who is willing to be a fool and pay to support these students who can eat so much? The common people were pessimistic. Some gentry who disliked Jiang Pingji also looked on coldly from the sidelines. Everyone had the same goal. They were all waiting to see Jiang Pingji make a fool of herself. Unbeknownst to them, there were already many rich people who wanted to kneel down and beg Jiang Pingji with money. However, they had no way out and could only be anxious. No matter how big their business was, they were still the lowest class of merchants. Jiang Pingji was a feudal lord. How could ordinary people meet her whenever they wanted? They had to think of a way even if they had no other way. There were only 2 spots. If they were too slow and someone else got it before them, they would beat them to it. Everyone used all kinds of martial arts. Some used their connections to find a way out, while others were in a favorable position. They turned their attention to the children who were studying again. They didn't have any official connections, but their children were studying in the Golden Scale Academy. There were many second generations of officials in the academy. As long as Fingyi and the others went back and learned from their relatives, it would be equivalent to informing Jiang Pingji. Because the Golden Scale Academy implemented full-time education, they could only meet their children once a month. If parents wanted to meet their children, they had to make an appointment in advance. Thus, the following situation occurred. Father, what are you doing? I don't lack food in the academy, and the academy doesn't allow students to wear private clothes, so I don't need them. The daughter looked at the small mountain of gift boxes behind her father and suddenly felt flattered. She wasn't well liked at home, so she didn't expect her father to care about her so much. Her father said embarrassedly, "This is not for you. I want to ask, do you know those Langjuan's wives?" The daughter couldn't hide her disappointment, but she said, "What about the Langjuan's wives? Who is father referring to?" Naturally, it's the children of the big shots in Wanzhou. Aren't they all your classmates? You don't know them. The daughter was speechless. The Golden Scale Academy was divided into different grades according to the age and progress of the students. The few that her father mentioned were all senior students, so how could they be considered classmates? At most, they could be considered schoolmates. Looking at this posture, she also knew that her father had a favor to ask and wanted her to be his matchmaker. She said, "If father has anything you want to ask them for help, I can give it a try, but don't give them gifts or bribes." Her father panicked and reprimanded her. "This is called the way of the world, how can it be called bribery? What does a little girl know?" The daughter said, "The way of the world shouldn't be given to a few students. It's easy to ruin their reputation, and they most likely won't accept it." Her father choked, but he had to admit that his daughter's words made sense. Giving gifts was the way of the world. To put it bluntly, it was also bribery and corruption. They might not necessarily lack such gifts. The daughter asked him, "Father, why are you looking for them?" "There's news that the Duke of Lanting wants to establish a branch of the Golden Scale Academy. I think that my family is quite rich, so I might as well donate one and become an honorary dean. After a few years, wouldn't the students who graduate from the branch be grateful for this favor? This will be good for our family." Her father said, "Your eldest brother is mediocre, and your second brother is useless. In the family, you're the only one who's more promising, but you're a girl. I'm afraid that after 100 years, they won't be able to protect their family business. Now that they can plan more, they'll have a guarantee in the future." Merchants had money but no power or influence, so they often had to find ways to rely on others. Although they had great wealth, they didn't have the ability to protect it. If their descendants were more prodigal and their relatives were more eccentric, they would be lonely within 3 generations. The current world wasn't peaceful. Without a backer, even a mountain of gold and silver could be robbed clean. "I can give it a try, but I can't guarantee that it'll work." Although they were students of the same academy, and those few were amiable and approachable, they wouldn't fight with ordinary students. How to pass the message? She had to think carefully. Compared to using connections to go through the back door, this method was efficient and convenient. How many middlemen would be saved? Feng Yi became the target of many people, so he told his father Feng Zhen about it. Feng Zhen teased his son with a smile. "Those people are so stingy, so stingy. Don't they all say that they're rich, but they don't give any benefits when they ask for help? So immature." Feng Yi said, "Accepting bribes and breaking the rules, how will my classmates look at me in the future?" Feng Zhen wanted to laugh, but Wan Xiu tapped his hand with her fan, telling him to take it easy. It wasn't easy for the old Feng family to raise such a good son. They couldn't let Feng Zhen ruin his future. Feng Zhen wasn't serious either, so he took the opportunity to touch her hand, which made Wan Xiu roll her eyes. "With your personality, you should be a censor in the future. You'll definitely offend everyone you meet." He was such a perfect romantic, so why did he have such a dull and insensible son? Feng Yi said, "A censor is not bad. In the future, he would have to report to his father every day." Who asked him to be covered with lice? All the families waited anxiously for a reply. Only Jiang Pingji, the big winner, sat there calmly. She sent people to collect information about the family's backgrounds and property evaluations. She looked at them one by one. The salted fish audience also accompanied her in her careful selection. After a long time, a certain salted fish raised a question. "Eat hot pot tonight, didn't you say that the highest bidder wins?" "Streamer, you're trying to make a private deal." Jiang Pingji said, "Do I look like someone who will bend over for 5 buckets of rice?" On the surface, it's an auction, but money doesn't get you the right to bid. If the person who spends a lot of money to buy a spot is a black-hearted businessman, won't I be harming the people and tarnishing my own reputation? She said it boldly and confidently, as if she regarded money as dirt. If the salted fish didn't know her well, he would have been deceived by her acting. Besides, was that 5 buckets of rice? Chapter 1392. Each of the 360 professions had its own master. Merchants who had the ability to expand their businesses naturally had a vision that ordinary people couldn't compare to. While this group of people was painstakingly trying to find a way, someone had already seen Jiang Pingji one step ahead of them. This person was none other than the leader of Chongzhou's Chui clan, Chui Yu. When outsiders mentioned the Chui family of Chongzhou, they would always mention their clan leader, Chui Yu, whose eyes were like torches. Why? This was because Chui Yu had placed a heavy bet on Jiang Pingji before her power grew. It was precisely because of this choice that the small family that had been hovering between second and third class leaped to become the leader of Chongzhou's powers. Before relying on Jiang Pingji, the Chui family of Chongzhou was seen as a fence-sitter in the eyes of outsiders. They relied on business with the north borderline to make a fortune and were always looked down upon. After Jiang Pingji took over Chongzhou, she faced the threat of the north borderline and the suppression of the local aristocrats in Chongzhou. The Chuis were not afraid of the situation and resolutely chose to support Jiang Pingji. The facts proved that the Chui's gamble had paid off. As a reward, the Chuis obtained the right to sell bamboo paper and rice paper from Jiang Pingji. After the two parties had cooperated for 5 years, the Chuis could also obtain the secret recipe of the two kinds of paper. Relying on this business, the Chui family had made a lot of money in the past few years, and their status had risen along with it. Chui Yu heard that Jiang Pingji wanted to attract investors to build a branch of the Golden Scale Academy, so he rushed over without stopping to rest. Fortunately, when Chui Yu heard the news, he was checking on business at a shop not far from Wanzhou. Otherwise, it would have been too late. When Jiang Pingji heard about Chui Yu's visit, she was rather surprised. Why isn't he staying in Chongzhou? Why is he here in Wanzhou? In the live stream room, Salted Fish wore a dumbfounded look. It had been too long, and Salted Fish had changed batches after batches. They had forgotten who Chui Yu was. Fortunately, there was still a group of big shots in the live broadcast room. They were all good students who took notes during the live broadcast. Gue Kai Guo Fengxiu, Chui Yu from Chongzhou. I have some impression of him. He seems to be the family head of Chongzhou's Chui family. I remember his name is Chonghuan because this fellow always reminds me of Yuan Chonghuan. Speaking of which, this man hasn't shown his face in the live broadcast room for many years. Tudu Feiqiu, if Chui Yu hadn't appeared, I would have forgotten who he was. Old Salted Fish's attitude of meeting an old friend in a foreign land piqued the newbie's curiosity. Salami, who is Chui Yu? What about his looks? How old is he? Poor Taoist sees your chrysanthemum is poisonous. During the earthquake in Dongqing, the streamer saved a baby who was protected by his mother before she died. That baby was Chui Yu's son. Later on, the streamer used this child to get in touch with Chui Yu, roped in the Chui family, suppressed the other aristocratic families in Chongzhou, and turned the tables to take control of Chongzhou. As for Chui Yu, he should be around the same age as Feng Zhen. He was married and had a son. The Salted Fish all had the same question in their hearts. What was Chui Yu's purpose for coming here? Could it be that it was also to fight for a place in the branch academy? No matter how curious Salted Fish was, the answer could only be revealed when he met the person. After not seeing each other for several years, time did not leave a deep mark on Chui Yu's face. Instead, it added some depth and steadiness to his face. Jiang Pingji went straight to the point and asked, why did Zhonghuan come to Wanzhou? She was a busy person and her time was precious. She didn't have the time to keep him in suspense. Chui Yu was also used to Jiang Pingji's straightforwardness. He said, because some parts of the accounts collected last year don't match up, I've been checking the shops outside for the past few days. I happen to hear that my lord is preparing to build a branch of the Golden Scale Academy. I wonder if this is true. Jiang Pingji looked at Chui Yu with a faint smile. Of course it's true. Could it be that Zhonghuan also has such intentions? The Salted Fish couldn't help but hold their breath. They felt that the atmosphere was not quite right. Chui Yu came to invest. Wasn't this a good thing? Why did the streamer look unhappy? The Chui family has been operating for many years and has a small amount of assets. If my lord doesn't mind, I will naturally offer it to you to solve this urgent need. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, Zhonghuan's news is outdated. I slaughtered a few fat sheep from the Tao family a while ago. Why would I be short of money? Chui Yu revealed a relaxed smile and said gently, I see. Then I'm overthinking. After the two of them finished talking, the inexplicably tense atmosphere dissipated, leaving the Salted Fish confused. Yinuagia Zhuge Qinmo, have you forgotten the identity of the Cui family? The Cui family is now second to none in Chongzhou. They used to be rich, and now they have power and influence. They are also trusted by the streamer and have taken over many profitable businesses. If the Cui family gets involved in the branch of the Golden Scale Academy, the students from the branch will be the Cui family's natural connections. These students are talents that the streamers spend a lot of money and time to nurture. It is impossible for them to become ordinary people. At the very least, they will be low-ranking officials. Those who are capable may even be high-ranking officials. If the Cui family is a little ambitious, it will be much easier for them to form a clique for personal gain. Cui Yu came to test Jiang Pingji. Seeing that she had no intention of letting the Cui family get involved in this aspect, he changed his words. The salted fish listened to the analysis of the big boss and could not help but shout at the society. Does one need intelligence to watch the live stream these days? After all, Cui Yu was one of them. Jiang Pingji did not treat him too harshly. She rejected Cui Yu's participation in the battle and handed over the paper supply business to Cui Yu. With the gradual improvement of the papermaking technology, the annual consumption of paper rose in a straight line. The production model of a small workshop could no longer meet such a large demand. Coincidentally, Jiang Pingji and Cui Yu's 5-year cooperation was about to end. At that time, she will hand over the secret recipe of paper production to the Cui family. After the Cui family has made a lot of money, the secret recipe will be made public so that other merchants can have a share of the profits. When there are more merchants producing paper, the market price will gradually decrease as the production volume increases. In the end, the ordinary scholars will benefit. Hearing Jiang Pingji's decision, Cui Yu's expression became much better. His worried heart also relaxed. The child of the Zhonghuan family is also studying in the academy. I remember the child is called Fushou, right? Regarding the name Fushou, which has a good meaning but is unbearably vulgar, Cui Yu could only maintain an awkward but polite smile. He had no choice. He begged Jiang Pingji for this name. No matter how vulgar it is, he has to use it. My son has been studying in the academy for 2 years. The master has taught him attentively. A while ago, he sent a letter home saying that he got into the top 3 in his class. Jiang Pingji praised him sincerely. Top 3. That's really good. The Zhonghuan family has a successor. Cui Yu thought that Jiang Pingji was still single and did not even have a child. He could only listen silently with a smile and did not dare to answer. The outside world was waiting to see Jiang Pingji make a fool of herself. No one expected that the Cui family would appear at this juncture. Knowing that the Cui family did not get the quota, the crowd continued to sneer and watch. A group of merchants with big businesses could not sit still. Cui Yu was Jiang Pingji's confidant. If he wanted to fight for the quota, they really had no hope. Chapter 1393. The outside world was waiting to see a joke. Unexpectedly, on the day of registration, merchants with some wealth almost trampled the threshold of the registration office. Is it true that money burns one's hands? TSK, we commoners don't understand the thoughts of the rich. How can they not feel bad losing hundreds of thousands of coins? Some people were puzzled, and some people maliciously speculated and spread rumors. Maybe the Duke of Lanting knew that no one would come, so he specially invited people from the theatrical troupe to make a guest appearance. Naturally, there were people who came out to refute the rumors. What theatrical troupe making a guest appearance? Which one of you haven't seen the performers from the theatrical troupe? I took a peek just now, guess who I saw? My old boss is also there. My old boss is the boss of Chen's shop. He has many businesses: rice shop, cloth shop, food shop, wine shop. Walk 2 streets ahead and turn left. That cloth shop is owned by my old boss, and it only serves nobles. Hey! Come on, you're a barefoot rough man. Have you ever seen the boss of Chen's shop? The surrounding people ridiculed him, and the man's face turned red with anger. However, he was not good with words and could not win against others. On the other side, the rich man in the eyes of the commoners, the boss of Chen's shop also obediently queued up to register. Looking to his left, there were old business acquaintances. Looking to his right, there were old business rivals. Suddenly, he felt a headache coming on and had no idea what to do. Not only did he have a headache, but his old acquaintances and rivals also had a headache. There were too many wolves and not enough meat. There were only 2 slots, but there were 40 to 50 people competing for them. It seemed that to win, they could only rely on their wealth. Many people secretly gritted their teeth, planning to spend a lot of money to get a slot. Unexpectedly, the person in charge said that this was only the first stage. Everyone was at a loss. This was only the first stage. The person in charge said, although the branch has the name of a branch, it is actually no different from the main branch. The students of the branch are also the pillars of the future, and their reputation cannot be tarnished. Of course, we have to be very careful in selecting the honorary dean. Family wealth is secondary, and the most important thing is integrity. Wealth is obtained in the right way. Profit from righteousness, conduct business, compete fairly, and never break the law or harm the common people. Once they obtained the quota, they would basically be considered half an official's family. Even if their children could not become officials, they would still be respected by others. Jiang Pingji's meaning was very clear. I'm not interested in the money in your pockets. I'm more interested in your reputation. If your reputation is bad, no matter how rich you are, you'll still have to scram. Everyone was excited and trembling at the same time. They could not help but rack their brains to recall if their businesses had violated any laws or regulations. When it came to merchants, some relied on black-hearted business to make huge profits in a short period of time, while others relied on integrity and hard work to slowly expand their business. Upon hearing the manager's words, many merchants silently heaved a sigh of relief and revealed meaningful smiles. The other group of people were sad. They wished they could go back in time and kill this dark history in the cradle. The person in charge said, "We will send envoys to investigate in secret, so please don't lie." Everyone's face turned pale. If he didn't think of a way to fake it, how could he deceive everyone? The person in charge also appropriately revealed Jiang Pingji's intention to support the merchants. Although she did not agree to allow the merchants to become officials, everyone saw hope. Naturally, they did not dare to ask for more. They went home happily and waited for the news. As long as they passed the first test, it meant that the remaining people were good merchants who operated with integrity. With the government certification, they could also gain a favorable impression among the people. It was a steady profit and not a loss. The outside world looked on dumbfoundedly. They did not expect there to be more than one prodigal with too much money in the world. There was a string of people rushing to give money to Jiang Pingji. Not only that, but Jiang Pingji was also picky. Those who did not meet the requirements were not qualified to beg her to collect money. How infuriating! After a selection that was comparable to a talent show, Jiang Pingji considered all aspects of the conditions and finally chose 2 families as the lucky ones for this activity. The Qin family and the Sun family, the 2 big businesses, were selected. The Sun family cried tears of joy. The retired head supported himself with a walking stick and trembled as he opened the ancestral hall to thank the ancestors for their blessings. He cried and laughed at the same time, which made people worry about the old ancestors' health. The reaction of the Qin family was not much calmer. Not only did they open the ancestral hall, but they also held a 3-day banquet. Regardless of status, everyone could attend. Even if a group of beggars came, they could also eat and drink. Jiang Pingji even met the 2 personally to discuss the location of the branch. The two heads were so nervous that they could not speak coherently. Their hands and feet were trembling. The whole process was basically Jiang Pingji's suggestion. The two said, "Yes, okay, no problem, you can make the decision, Lord Lanting." In front of Lord Lanting, they only needed to talk. They did not need to bring their brains. There was also a small interlude in the middle, which was about the land of the branch. The land was Jiang Pingji's, but the two families had to buy it from Jiang Pingji. They had to pay 100 years of rent in one go. Because it was not fertile land, the price was not expensive. 200 mu of land did not cost much. The salted fish in the streaming room felt sorry for the two honest people. Jiang Pingji was clearly ripping them off. The people who were being ripped off had to smile and say yes. They took the initiative to wash their necks and machetes and waited anxiously for Jiang Pingji to rip them off. Graffiti, I feel so sorry for them that I can't watch anymore. These two are the most honest people of the year. The salted fish felt sorry for them, but the two were overjoyed and enjoyed it. Jiang Pingji said, "As for the branch, I will send someone to contact the two of you after the rules and regulations are drawn up. If you have any suggestions, you can raise them. If there are no accidents, the branch should start construction on the auspicious day next month. It is estimated that it will be completed by the middle of next year. You have invested a lot, so it is inevitable that you will neglect the learning and education of the younger generation. If there is a talented younger generation in your family, you can try to send them to the branch." After the two heard it, they were so moved that they wanted to cry. Their hearts were completely at ease. They had just invested, and they saw the hope of the autumn harvest. Jiang Pingji sent the two middle-aged men who were moved to tears away. Before she had a moment of peace, someone outside said that Lu Xiao wanted to see her. "Sister, sister, save little brother." Lu Xiao had just arrived when he pounced on Jiang Pingji like a swallow throwing itself into her arms. She dodged him coldly and stretched out her leg to trip him. Unsurprisingly, Lu Xiao fell and staggered. He felt wronged and said, "Sister." Lu Xiao's gaze was filled with, "You are cold, heartless, and unreasonable. What happened to the brother-sister love?" Jiang Pingji said, "Tell me, what's the matter? Don't tell me you don't have any spare change to spend again." Lu Xiao said, "Sister, do you think I'm such a worthless piece of trash? This is really an urgent matter. Speak normally." Lu Xiao said, "Father is coming. The letter just arrived, and he's already here." Lu Shi. Jiang Pingji frowned. "Father is coming. Why didn't anyone inform me?" Lu Xiao said, "Sister, aren't you busy with work? I also waited for an hour before I saw you." Jiang Pingji stood up and flicked her sleeves. She said calmly, "I am going to see father. Do you want to come?" Lu Xiao trembled and said with a bitter face, "If father questions me about running away from the marriage, you have to help me." Chapter 1394. Lu Xiao couldn't help but feel touched. "Sister, you were so charming just now." Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows and patted his head with a smile. "You have good taste, kid." Salted fish in the streaming room couldn't help but praise Lu Xiao's desire to live. For the sake of his life, he would say anything that went against his conscience. Xing Yuan Miao Miao, it's tragic. Brother Lu Xiao seems to be the first person of the opposite sex to praise the streamer's charm. Wandering Yuhang, streamer, you can't defeat a frog even after 10 years. Why don't you change your strategy and find out more about the German orthopedics department? Xianyun Feixing, The unpopular couple has finally been noticed. I really like the queen sister and the lackey CP. When the streamer interacts with Ah Zhao's brother, I feel that the aura around her becomes gentle. I really like the way they interact. Isha Jixing, the streamer is indeed the main attacker. She can attack whoever the couple is. But Ah Zhao's brother is too weak. I don't like it. Lu Zhao shuddered and followed behind Jiang Pingji like a little wife. He was even more afraid at the thought of meeting Lu Shi. Sister, guess why father came to Wanzhou? Jiang Pingji smiled. Didn't you run away from your wedding last time? Maybe he's here to bring up the past again. Lu Zhao was so scared that he tripped over his right foot. If Jiang Pingji hadn't helped him, he might have fallen to the ground. Sister. Don't scare me. I don't like the person father arranged, Jiang Pingji asked calmly. If you don't like the person he arranged, who do you like? No matter what, you're not young anymore. If you're still single and there's no woman to serve you, outsiders will only say that I'm not a good sister and that I'm treating my brother badly. Lu Zhao felt his scalp go numb. His sister's question was a dead end. He couldn't answer it well. I don't have a girl I like. Lu Zhao couldn't help but say shyly, I'm still young. Keep me by your side for 2 more years. Jiang Pingji snorted meaningfully, but she didn't comment. When the siblings saw Lu Shi, he was sitting opposite Gu Zhen and drinking. The faint fragrance of pear blossom wine wafted through the air. Brother-in-law's brewing skills are almost the same as my sister's. Gu Dai was dressed in casual clothes and slightly made up. She looked a few years younger than her actual age. It was just like the saying, Sun Yang is getting old, but still charming. Lu Shi, who was sitting opposite her, was still dressed in a dark green Confucian robe. His hair was dyed gray, and there was a sense of relaxation and contentment between his brows. He said, being almost the same doesn't mean it's the same. In the end, it's still different. It can't replicate her taste. While the two of them were talking, Jiang Pingji brought the cowardly and weak Lu Zhao inside and bowed to the two of them. Lu Zhao also obediently followed suit, wishing that she could hide her petite body in the shadow of her elder sister's sturdy body. Father, mother. Gu Zhen agreed with a smile, but Lu Shi snorted coldly. He placed the wine cup in his hand on the table with a clang, scaring Lu Zhao so much that his heart trembled. Jiang Pingji said, why did father suddenly come? At least let me know in advance so that I can send people out of the city to welcome my father. Seeing that Jiang Pingji had spoken, Lu Zhao secretly rejoiced that he had successfully changed his target. Who knew that Lu Shi would not let him go? I am here for my unfilial son's marriage. It's just a family matter. It's more important for you to attend to your own business. There's no need to involve so many people. Lu Shi's pitch-black eyes seemed to hide a horrifying sharp blade. Lu Zhao felt uncomfortable when he looked at him. He wanted to find a hole to hide in. He was extremely afraid of Lu Shi. If Jiang Pingji had not stood in front of him, Lu Zhao did not know whether he would have made a fool of himself in front of everyone. For Ah Zhao's marriage. Jiang Pingji tilted her head and looked at the pitiful Lu Zhao. She said, marriage depends on fate. Ah Zhao still wants to play around and is unwilling to get married. Why should father force him? It's better to let him play around. He wants to settle down when he's old enough. After playing around for 3 or 4 years, when Lu Zhao was tired, he would naturally want to find an honest man to be his successor. Lu Shi said, Lanting is always so protective of him. You spoil him so much that he doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Marriage is naturally decided by parents. He doesn't know how old he is. He's always fooling around and doesn't know how to settle down. When can he get married and not be a burden to you? Jiang Pingji said indifferently, I think I have some resources. I can afford to raise 10 more children, let alone one. Lu Zhao was moved to tears. Sister, she was definitely his biological sister. She was standing up to his father, Lu Shi, for her brother. Lu Shi sighed. If it's about raising him, I can afford it. I don't lack food for him. He had come to settle Lu Zhao's marriage. He had fulfilled one of his wishes. Jiang Pingji saw that he was determined, so she could only ask Lu Shi. Father, you've made up your mind. I can't stop you or reject your good intentions. About Zhao's marriage, do you have a candidate in mind? Lu Zhao's heart suddenly turned cold. Sister, you have to bear the pressure. Lu Shi rolled his eyes at Lu Zhao and grumpily said, I do have a few good candidates, and their temperaments and family backgrounds are similar, but I still have to ask this unfilial son if he has any women he likes. Otherwise, why would he run away to Wanzhou without saying a word? Lu Zhao suddenly became the center of attention. He was so scared that his heart trembled. He said with a slight lack of confidence, I do have a girl I like, but Jiang Pingji was not surprised. Lu Shi asked, but what? Could it be that she's married? Master Cheng's youngest daughter. Lu Zhao gathered his courage and said, we've met a few times, but it's just my unrequited love. She doesn't know what you're thinking. I don't know if Master Cheng has arranged a marriage for her, so I haven't dared to say it. Jiang Pingji said, if you knew this was what you were thinking, why didn't you say it earlier? I could have talked to Master Cheng for you. Lu Shi said coldly, he doesn't deserve it. He's Lu Shi's younger brother. There's no one he doesn't deserve. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, Zhao, go back and wait for the news. I'll go to Master Cheng's residence and ask him about it. If that Qing Nyangzi is still unmarried, this marriage may not be impossible. Lu Zhao was dumbfounded. He felt, Lu Shi and Jiang Pingji seemed to have swapped positions. According to his calculations, shouldn't Lu Shi be the matchmaker while his sister objected or tried to smooth things over? Based on Lu Zhao's current status, it was politically awkward for him to be Master Cheng's daughter. They were indeed not a good match. Lu Zhao was sent away by Jiang Pingji, and Gu Zhen also gave some space to the father and daughter. Jiang Pingji sat in Gu Zhen's seat and took a clean cup of wine. She drank by herself and said, Father, why are you here all of a sudden? She had asked this question once before. The first time, she still had the live stream open. The second time, she turned it off. Lu Shi said, I'm here for my unfilial son, Lu Zhao. Chapter 1395. Lu Shi was silent for a long time. After a while, he said calmly and confidently, you won't kill him, so there's nothing to worry about. Indeed, I won't kill him. Ah, Zhao is quite cute. She changed the topic. I won't kill him, but that doesn't mean others won't. Most people would think that the others Jiang Pingji mentioned were radicals who were loyal to her. No matter how well Jiang Pingji did, no matter how high she rose, and no matter how many children her age could play mahjong together, she had no intention of getting married or pregnant. It was impossible for her subordinates not to be anxious. Under such circumstances, there would definitely be people who wanted her to have an heir as soon as possible, even if it was a son from another branch of the family. But there were also people who supported Jiang Pingji. Lu Zhao was the biggest target to eliminate any hidden danger that could usurp the throne. However, Lu Shi knew that Jiang Pingji was not referring to those people, but someone else. Because it's dangerous, I want to use marriage as an excuse to send him far away. It's good to let him be a rich and idle man. You don't look like someone who is willing to live in peace. Jiang Pingji sneered. Can a rich and idle man satisfy your appetite? No one in the world is born greedy. Lu Shi avoided the question. As long as that unfilial son is satisfied. Jiang Pingji said, Xiao is Lanting's biological brother. Of course, he will get what he wants. The father and daughter's conversation came to an end, and they drank a jar of wine in silence. Jiang Pingji asked him, what kind of person is Gu Min? Her. She's a person who is passionate about life. She's sunny and beautiful. You can tell from her eyes that she grew up in a comfortable and peaceful environment. Lu Shi raised his cup and drank it in one gulp. I thought you were very similar to her, but it turns out that I was wrong. The first time he saw Jiang Pingji, he knew that she and Gu Min were completely different people. Both of them were pure, but one was pure white, and the other was pure black. Jiang Pingji said, "Look at you. You make it sound like I'm a ruthless person who kills people like flies." Lu Shi was strangely silent. Wasn't she? Not to mention what kind of person she was in her previous life. The number of people who had died in her hands in the past few years in Dongqing was in the tens of thousands. When did you start to doubt me? Lu Shi had never been able to figure it out. Jiang Pingji smiled. Her eyes were misty because of the wine. That's an interesting question, father. I've never trusted anyone since the beginning. Jiang Pingji played with the wine cup in her hand, and her lips curled into a sly smile. If it were an ordinary person, most of them would feel uneasy because they are suddenly in an unfamiliar environment and urgently need to find stability from someone they know. Recognizing the body's identity and the body's relatives and obtaining a sense of security from them was one of the most convenient channels. It was also a reflexive choice for the weak to protect themselves. I personally think that I am not a weakling. The corner of Lu Shi's mouth twitched. There were too many things to complain about. He didn't know if she was too conceited and arrogant or something else, but she was also quite narcissistic. From the very beginning, I have never acknowledged Lu Shi's identity, nor will I regard Lu Shi's identity and connections as my own, nor will I be completely immersed in them. Jiang Pingji said, "Jump out of the shackles and barriers of identity and emotions. Many things are not difficult to explain." Without the filter brought by her identity and emotions, she was able to calmly watch Lu Shi's performance. She was happy to cooperate with him. Lu Shi was speechless. Sure enough, the deep love between father and daughter was an illusion created by the two acting queens. You and I are not meant to be. It is all thanks to acting. Lu Shi said, "Do you know that there is a phrase called acting out for real? No matter how good an actor's acting was, he or she would also be lost in the overly realistic emotions. They would involuntarily act out for real and lose themselves in the illusion." Lu Shi found that Jiang Pingji did not have this problem at all. Even when the father-daughter relationship was at its best, she still maintained her rationality. Jiang Pingji knew what Lu Shi was trying to say. I have long passed the age of yearning for fatherly and motherly love. Maybe I yearned for it when I was young because I was weak. But after that period of time, these feelings are no longer necessities for me, they are burdens. Jiang Pingji said expressionlessly, "Even if I have a 12-year-old body again, a kind and gentle father, a dignified and beautiful stepmother, and an adorable and silly brother, I can't go back, I can't go back. I can act, but I really can't regard someone younger than me as my father. You are making things difficult for me." Moreover, the kind and gentle father was fake, the dignified and beautiful stepmother was fake, and the cute and adorable brother was also fake. How could she have real feelings for something that was fake? Lu Shi, wait, she was actually older than him. How did Jiang Pingji call a man younger than her father without any psychological barriers? Lu Shi's eyes said it all. Jiang Pingji replied, "I am a professional person." Lu Shi, the two of them were silent again. Lu Shi did not expect the two of them to lay their cards on the table so easily. Even though they already knew the truth, there was still a layer of window paper that had not been exposed. Now that it had been exposed, neither of them could pretend that it had never happened. Jiang Pingji said, "You have said so much to me today. Are you planning to form an alliance with me?" Lu Shi replied, "Why not? The enemy of my enemy is my friend." Jiang Pingji revealed a meaningful smile. What happened to the allies who had formed an alliance with her in the past? That person's hiding place is extremely secretive. Although I don't know the specific location, he is definitely in Wanzhou, by your side. Lu Shi said, his purpose is very clear. He wants the fate of the whole world. As the son of fate, you must be a target that he keeps a close eye on. Jiang Pingji said, I know. I also have a question. Wouldn't it be easier for him to plot against me and fight for the world by himself? The corner of Lu Shi's mouth twitched. He was slightly speechless. You have the god-slaying sword by your side. Why are you still asking this question? The main system had been cowardly and refused to show up. Wasn't it because the dimensional patrolling merchant had not left? Before the hidden danger of the plane was solved, it was impossible for him to leave. That was why the main system had its eyes on Jiang Pingji. In addition, Jiang Pingji said, I just find it boring. Since the dimensional patrolling merchant restrains him, what is the point of my existence? She thought she was the chess player. Suddenly knowing that she was just a chess piece in someone else's hands, she was naturally unhappy. I don't know either, Lu Shi said. Jiang Pingji asked, you came to lay your cards on the table with me. Isn't this a betrayal to him? Are you worried about me? Lu Shi raised his eyebrows and said firmly, don't worry, he is not nearby. He won't know. Jiang Pingji said, one last question. Have you sent someone to assassinate Wenjing? Chapter 1396. Lu Shi's face showed some surprise and astonishment. Jiang Pingji looked at his face calmly without blinking. Is this important to you? Lu Shi raised his eyebrows and looked at Jiang Pingji with a complicated expression. He wasn't a gossipy person, but he was curious about the man who was lucky enough to get so many beauties in the history that Gu Min knew. He had suspected Qi Guanrang before, but ever since Qi Guanrang married Wei Yuan's eldest daughter, Lu Shi removed him from the list. Now, he wasn't so sure. Could it be that Qi Guanrang would lose his wife in the future and the two of them would secretly get married a few years later? If that was the case, what would happen to Wei Ci? Jiang Pingji didn't know what Lu Shi was thinking. She said indifferently, honesty is the basic attitude of an alliance. I didn't send anyone to kill him. Lu Shi shook his head and denied it. He suddenly thought of something and said with uncertainty, but I can't guarantee that I didn't. All living creatures had 7 emotions and 6 desires, and he was no exception. However, he was arrogant and conceited. He regarded the 7 emotions and 6 desires as a burden, so he took the initiative to abandon this part of his emotions. In the end, this part of the emotions became an independent Lu Shi. Although he became independent, they came from the same source and the other party retained his strength. If he wanted to use my hand to do something, I wouldn't be able to detect it. Lu Shi hated this state of affairs. The other party had taken advantage of the situation and controlled the body to strangle Gu Min, who had just given birth. Not only Gu Min, but the 2 sons who died young were also related to the other party. Lu Shi didn't dare to think about it. Gu Min was desperate and resentful before she died. She had always been a smart person. The main body of the system wanted to kill Gu Min mostly because Gu Min knew something she shouldn't have known, and that was why she was killed. For example, the truth of the 2 sons' deaths. The main body was afraid that Gu Min would spill the beans, so he killed her. Jiang Pingji said, Wenjing injured his left hand in the assassination. According to him, the assassins behaved strangely. They didn't seem to want to kill him, but more like they were testing something. At first, I suspected that they were sent by you to test whether Wenjing was my weakness. Lu Shi was confused. Weakness? Jiang Pingji said, the person I trust the most and am least guarded against is my weakness. Lu Shi remained silent for a while. With all due respect, such a person can't possibly exist, right? Everyone should have a dream. Who knows, I might have guessed it. Jiang Pingji's tone remained calm as usual, as if what she said was as normal as, "It's a sunny day today." She said, "I have my reasons for suspecting you. Weren't you my enemy before we had a showdown and formed an alliance?" As a normal father, no one would like a wandering ghost to take over his daughter's body and identity. It was only natural for him to take over everything she had and use it to make a name for himself, right? If I were the father, I would punch that shameless outsider to death. I also suspected that Lu Shi wasn't dead and that she was still alive in some corner of the world. When I unite the world and stand in the most honorable position in the world, you will let her come back and occupy this body and identity. Lu Shi and Jiang Pingji had always been on opposing sides. Jiang Pingji had taken over Lu Shi's daughter's body. Why would Lu Shi like her when he knew it? Was it because she could achieve something that Lu Shi could never achieve in his lifetime? Lu Shi was not Gu Zhen. He might not care about fame and fortune. They could remove their masks and talk calmly only because they had the same enemy and had no choice but to form an alliance. Following Jiang Pingji's narration, Lu Shi's calm expression began to crack. After a person dies, it takes a certain amount of time for their spirit to completely dissipate. When I entered this body, my body was warm. In other words, someone took away the real Lu Shi in a very short time. Lu Shi had just left, and I came right after. I don't need to think too much about who took Lu Shi away. Of course, I have reason to suspect that you are in cahoots with that person and have reached some kind of mutually beneficial agreement. You have to pretend to be calm and composed in front of the enemy who killed your daughter every day. Your professionalism is beyond doubt. Jiang Pingji said with a tone of, "I knew it." My speculation is not baseless, right? Lu Shi was speechless and only retorted after a while. You know that I have ill intentions towards you, but you can still play along with me calmly. You are indeed worthy of being the future Emperor Qin. You are indeed admirable. Jiang Pingji said, "The reason why conspiracies are so frightening is because of the dark word. Unknown dangers are the most difficult to guard against. You belong to the unknown category to me. At the same time, you don't know that I have ill intentions towards you. Who do you think should be more afraid?" Lu Shi was speechless. He was really speechless. He had thought that Jiang Pingji was important enough, but the person in front of him was more difficult to deal with than he had expected. Jiang Pingji said, "As we speak, I am suddenly very curious about something. My dear ally, can you explain it to me?" Lu Shi was speechless. How could he say no? If they continued talking, he would really doubt whether his decision to form an alliance with Jiang Pingji was right or wrong. To some extent, Jiang Pingji was much more terrifying than the main body of the system. As a separate part of the system, you must have a reason to give up your cooperation with him and your plan to let Lu Shi come back and take over my body, right? If the reason is not good enough, I really doubt whether you sincerely want to cooperate with me or are you trying to trick me. Lu Shi was silent for a long time. He refused to answer the question, but Jiang Pingji could guess. For Lu Shi, who was more important than his daughter, Lu Shi, and son, Lu Zhao? This person could make him give up his cooperation with the system and turn to Jiang Pingji as an ally. After thinking about it, there was only one answer. Gu Min. Gu Min's death has something to do with the main body of the system? Jiang Pingji said with certainty, "You said before that the main body of the system took over your body and used it to do things you didn't want to do, and you didn't know anything about it. Let me make a bold guess. Could it be that the guy used your body to hurt Gu Min, or even kill her? You know the truth, so you decided to abandon your previous plan and form an alliance with me." Lu Shi glanced at her out of the corner of his eye and said coldly, "You can shut up." She knew that it was a wound that should not be touched, but she still stepped on it persistently. If it were not for her strength, she would have been put in a gunny sack and beaten to death. It seems that I have guessed correctly. Jiang Pingji was not surprised. Because this body belongs to your daughter, we are on opposite sides, and there is no possibility of peaceful coexistence. When the main body of the system is killed, if you don't want to die, you'd better find a way out for yourself. Once the system died, Jiang Pingji would have nothing to worry about. She would personally remove all the hidden dangers. She hoped that Lu Shi would not do anything that would cross her bottom line. Chapter 1397. Lu Shi said, "Don't be so sure. Even if you and I are allies, how can we easily kill someone who is on par with God?" God. Ha. Jiang Pingji said coldly, "You're just a stray dog. What else can you do besides barking and hiding?" Lu Shi was speechless. Her words were reasonable, and he couldn't refute it. After all, the main body of the system was in such a state. Lu Shi said expressionlessly, "If that's the case, I won't say any more nonsense. I wish you good luck. I only hope that you can get what you want. Don't be like me, who was too smart for my own good and lost the one I love. I was wrong. Maybe you don't love at all." Jiang Pingji rested her chin on her hand and said, "Who said that? How can a lovable and lovely person like me be a single dog?" Lu Shi couldn't bear it anymore and said, "Shut up." Jiang Pingji couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time she saw Lu Shi on the verge of breaking down. Lu Shi said, "According to what we know, the person is hiding around you. It's very likely that he's with someone close to you. If Jiang Pingji wasn't careful, she would lose the person. Let's see if she could still laugh then. Of course I know. I've locked on to the target. No one can take my things and people away from me." Jiang Pingji said confidently and conceitedly. Lu Shi held back and didn't say anything sarcastic in the end. After saying goodbye to Lu Shi, Jiang Pingji left with Lu Zhao, who was anxiously planting mushrooms. "Sister, what did you talk about with father? He doesn't look too good." Jiang Pingji said, "We talked about adult matters. Children shouldn't ask too much." Lu Zhao pursed his lips and tried hard to suppress the curiosity in his heart, lest curiosity killed the cat. "About the youngest daughter of the Qing family, are you serious?" Jiang Pingji's tone was cheerful and didn't sound unhappy, but Lu Zhao didn't dare to say yes. The youngest daughter of the Qing family's father was Qing Qing. Qing had an invisible influence in the Wanzhou group. Lu Zhao didn't dare to provoke him to avoid unnecessary suspicion. Lu Zhao said bitterly, Isn't that to avoid father's forced marriage? Besides, the youngest daughter of the Qing family isn't young anymore. How could she not be engaged? I'm just using it as a shield. Father won't stay in Wanzhou for long. When he returns to Chongzhou to retire, I'll have escaped with my life. Sister, don't tell me that you think I'm spending too much and want to drive me out. Lu Zhao took advantage of Lu Shi in Chongzhou and Jiang Pingji in Wanzhou. His monthly salary was not low. He had reason to suspect that Jiang Pingji despised him for being too extravagant. Jiang Pingji kicked his calf impatiently. She was slow and gentle, otherwise, Lu Zhao's leg would have been broken. Lu Zhao, are you a man now? If you like him, then you like him. If you don't like him, then you don't like him. Why worry so much? Jiang Pingji put her hand on his shoulder, as if they were good brothers. If you like it, I'll immediately go to your house and arrange a marriage for you. If you don't like it, I'll immediately go to your house and ask Mr. Qing to arrange a marriage for his daughter. I don't want you to have other thoughts while we're unmarried. Jiang Pingji said mercilessly, after this year, I'm afraid I'll have to go to war and attack Nanxing. I won't be back for another year or two. By the time I'm back, maybe his child will be able to crawl and walk. Do you really not regret it? Lu Zhao did not speak. Jiang Pingji pressed his head with one hand, causing him to bend over. You're young, but you have a lot of thoughts. Don't meddle in adult matters. Just live your own life. Jiang Pingji had always been alone. She had no siblings. Lu Zhao, the cowardly and weak boy, was especially likable to her. Lu Zhao had no conflict of interest with her, and the boy had never harbored any ill intentions towards her. Naturally, Jiang Pingji could tolerate him. Not to mention anything else, just for the sake of Gu Min, her brainless fan, she had to be merciful and soft-hearted. After the siblings walked for a while, Lu Zhao stammered and squeezed out a few words. Then I'll have to trouble you, sister. Help me ask if she's engaged. Jiang Pingji smiled and said, what if she's engaged? Then ask her if she likes her future husband's family. Jiang Pingji asked again, what if she likes them? Then ask her future husband's family if they have a short lifespan. Jiang Pingji smiled and asked, what if they have a long lifespan? Then ask her if she has considered having a daughter or something. Jiang Pingji said, what if she only has a boy? Sister, you're forcing me to my death, Lu Zhao said. Jiang Pingji said, if you really have such a hobby, I can beat you to death right now. Don't be a scourge while you're alive. Lu Zhao shuddered. Could he be blamed? Sister was the one who started it. He was just reacting accordingly. Jiang Pingji was not very busy recently. The next day, she prepared a generous gift and visited Qing Cheng's manor. Qing Cheng and his wife did not know why and were secretly guessing her intentions. They did not expect to hear Jiang Pingji mention the youngest daughter in the manor. The husband and wife were both smart people. How could they not understand Jiang Pingji's intentions? She was planning to arrange a marriage for her brother, Lu Zhao. Even though Lu Zhao was the son of a concubine, he knew how to cozy up to someone powerful. In the marriage market, he was quite popular. I already understand your intentions, Lord Lanting. Lu San Langjun is naturally a good choice. I've met him before, Qing Qing said. Although the marriage of children is decided by the parents, it also depends on the children's opinions. If my daughter is interested, I'm naturally willing to form an in-law relationship with you. Qing Cheng's daughter had naturally been engaged before, but the engagement had been broken off soon after. At that time, Huang Song had openly and secretly hoped that Qing Qing would attach himself to him, but Qing Qing had a temper and refused to agree. Unexpectedly, the in-laws fawned on those in power. When they saw that Qing Qing had rejected Huang Song, they were afraid that Huang Song would vent his anger on them, so they took the initiative to find an excuse to cancel the engagement. Qing Qing almost fainted from anger. Later, Qing Qing had a firm foothold on Jiang Pingji's side. Jiang Pingji's development also improved day by day. The in-laws shamelessly stuck to them again. They said that their son liked their daughter so much that he did not eat or drink all day and would not marry anyone else. Qing Qing was disgusted again. Because of this, Qing Qing and his wife could not continue to arrange a marriage for their daughter, so they simply kept her for another 2 years. Qing Qing had also met Lu Zhao. Judging from the current situation, Lu Zhao had no ambition. He could not run away as a rich and idle person. The family structure was simple, and the Lord was also open-minded. His daughter would not be wronged if she married him. Qing Qing was very satisfied. He did not hide it from Jiang Pingji and took the initiative to tell her the details. Jiang Pingji said, "It's okay. These people are shameless. If they dare to talk nonsense again, we'll find an excuse to dismiss them in the future." Qing Cheng's status in Wanzhou was not low, but he really did not have much real power. He was also an upright person. No wonder the villains bullied him. As long as the youngest daughter of the Qing family nodded, the marriage would be considered stable. He thought that he would have to argue, but who would have thought that as soon as he said it, his daughter would agree? Daughter, after all, this is a lifelong event. As a father, I will not force you to do anything. It's all up to you. Do you want to reconsider? She had agreed too quickly, and he was a little flustered. I've met Lu Xiao before. He has a good temperament, but he doesn't lose his cuteness. He's easier to deal with than others. Chapter 1398. Sister, sister, what did Qing Nangzi say? Is there an engagement? Do you like your husband's family? Is your husband's family short-lived? Do you have plans to have a daughter? Jiang Pingji had just returned when the boy, who had just crossed his legs and swung his legs, immediately came up to her shamelessly. Jiang Pingji brushed him away with a slap. This boy was so mischievous. He was itching for a beating. I'm thirsty. She raised her eyebrows at Lu Xiao. The lackey hurriedly poured tea for her and massaged her shoulders and legs. He was extremely attentive. Jiang Pingji said with satisfaction, there is an engagement, but that marriage fell through long ago. In the end, you benefited from it. If there are no other accidents, this marriage is in the bag. As long as Master Qing gives his word, I'll get someone to pick an auspicious day in a few days and send an iceman to the manor to be the matchmaker for you. Master Cheng's family is very strict. You can't make any mistakes. You should restrain yourself. Lu Xiao's little face was smiling like a spring flower. He opened his mouth and said all kinds of sweet words that cost nothing. If it was a young girl who had her first awakening of love, she might not be able to resist the temptation of this small mouth. However, Jiang Pingji was his sister. Not only did the latter's heart not beat wildly, but she also slapped him. What about the betrothal gift? Have you thought about it? Jiang Pingji asked him expressionlessly. Lu Xiao was at a loss. He immediately looked at her with a burning gaze. If he could shape-shift, he might be able to see the dog's tail that was wagging behind him. Jiang Pingji clicked her tongue and said, Xiao, don't tell me you want me to pay for your wife's dowry. Sister, have pity on me, Lu Xiao said matter-of-factly. Sister, look at me. I don't have any good points. Other than eating, drinking, and playing, I don't know anything else. I'm weak, pitiful, and helpless, but I can still eat. If you don't raise me, my whole family will have nothing to eat. Jiang Pingji had never seen such a shameless person. She was angry and amused at the same time. She wanted to slap his face again. How long do you plan to hide the assets that mother left for you? Jiang Pingji asked straightforwardly. Don't think that she didn't know that Gu Min had left a generous inheritance to Lu Xiao before she passed away. It wasn't much for her, but for Lu Xiao, a life of glory and wealth was no problem. This kid doesn't lack money, yet he keeps complaining about being poor to me. Does he have any shame? Lu Xiao wanted to play dumb, but when he saw Jiang Pingji's clear eyes, he knew that his secret could not be kept. Sigh, even if mother left behind a mountain of gold and silver, I can only sit and eat it all away. He said helplessly, besides, on the surface, I'm just the son of a concubine from a lowly family. It's hard to guarantee that no one will suspect me if I make so much money all of a sudden. There are too many shrewd people working for sister. I'm afraid that if I make too much money, they'll suddenly kill me. I'm also very, very bitter, sob sob sob. Speaking of this, Lu Xiao felt extremely bitter in his heart. Other than being a good-for-nothing who didn't work hard, who didn't know how to distinguish grain from grain, everything he did was life-threatening. He couldn't become an official, he couldn't do business. If Lu Xiao didn't think of a way to make Jiang Pingji support him, how would he be able to provide for his old age? Weep weep weep, oink carrot oink, I'm bitter in my heart. Jiang Pingji couldn't help but laugh. By saying this, you want me to restore your identity as the third legitimate son. When Lu Xiao heard this, he was so scared that he almost jumped 3 feet high. His identity as the son of a concubine was already being watched by so many people. If he were restored as the legitimate son, and he was born from the same mother as sister, he wouldn't be able to live to see the sun rise the next day. Qiguan Rang, Yang Si, and Fengzhen were all vegetarians. They'd really plot to murder him. Elder sister, please spare this little brother. It's not like you don't know how scary the shrewd people working for you are. They'll really kill people. I'm still your biological brother from the same mother. Can't we have some brotherly love? Lu Zhao wished he could kneel down to Jiang Pingji. Jiang Pingji couldn't help but rub her brows. Stand up, don't be so cowardly. Lu Zhao said righteously, this isn't cowardice, this is called a wise man submits to circumstances. Jiang Pingji said impatiently, tomorrow I'll look for my father to ask for a betrothal gift for you. He'll pay half and I'll pay the other half. After all, you're the apple of Master Chang's eye. If the betrothal gift is shabby, it'll inevitably give people the impression that you're being disrespectful. You can offend anyone but a scholar. You have to maintain your dignity. Lu Zhao stammered, asking for it from my father. This isn't very good. Jiang Pingji lifted her foot and kicked Lu Zhao. She couldn't help but say angrily. You're his son, not mine. He won't pay for his son's marriage. How can there be such a good thing? Lu Zhao hugged her leg and said, an elder sister is like a mother. Sister, do you understand? Jiang Pingji's face was cold. She grabbed Lu Zhao's collar with one hand and dragged him out. She threw him aside and closed the door in one go. Lu Zhao lay on the ground and rolled around for a while. Seeing that Jiang Pingji wasn't soft-hearted, he sighed faintly and turned over to lie on the ground. He turned his head to look at the bright sunlight and the azure sky outside. As he looked, the corners of his lips couldn't help but curl into a faint smile. Mother, please bless your son to get what he wants. The sunlight was dazzling. He squinted his eyes lazily and maintained the posture of lying on his back. He took a nap with his limbs spread out. The maids who were passing by saw him and they all chuckled and went around him. Not long after, the news that the Lu residence was about to hold a big wedding spread out. Everyone knew that Jiang Pingji's brother was getting married. So what if he's getting married? He's just a son of a concubine. Why does my lord have to indulge him so much? Yang Si rolled around in the piles of bamboo slips. The dark circles under his eyes were almost comparable to the iron-eating beast that Wei Si had raised. I'm not afraid that he'll grow ambitious. Han Yu frowned when he heard that. Seeing that Yang Si was slacking off again, his excellent self-restraint almost broke down. He couldn't wait to kick over the piles of bamboo slips next to him so that Yang Si would be buried alive by the bamboo slips and get rid of a great evil for the world. Lu Zhaowen is not good at martial arts and his wife's clan is Mr. Qing. He can't borrow any strength to pose a threat to my lord. Han Yu calmly analyzed, if my lord can't even tolerate such a useless brother of a concubine, I don't know how the outside world will slander my lord. If you're jealous, just say it. Yang Si exploded all of a sudden. How was he jealous? What was he jealous about? Did he look like that kind of person? Han Yu sneered, I heard that Captain Jiang is pregnant and he goes to the military camp every day to take attendance. He would rather walk around with a big belly and let the outside world speculate about the child's father than marry Yang Si. Yang Si was jealous. Yang Si was so angry that he pulled out the tip of the writing brush. Asterisk asterisk caret asterisk asterisk asterisk. Why did everyone bully him? He was still busy today. Yang Si held the bald writing brush in his mouth and fumbled to take down another brush from the brush holder. He sighed and continued to bury himself in his work. The reactions of the others were similar to Yang Si and Han Yu. Some people snorted and some people were indifferent. Chapter 1399. Jiang Pingji had a big family business, so it was not difficult for her to prepare a betrothal gift. Lu Shi kept saying unfilial son and unfilial son one after another, but he was also prepared and prepared all kinds of betrothal gifts. Ching Ching started to save up for his daughter's dowry when she was born. Now that his daughter had grown up, her dowry would only increase. The man's betrothal gift and the woman's dowry were ready, so the next step was easy. According to the usual wedding procedures of the gentry, it would take at least half a year to prepare, but considering the current situation, the wedding had to be brought forward. From the matchmaking to the marriage ceremony, it only took a little more than a month. Time was tight, but the wedding was not. The man's betrothal gift and the woman's dowry surprised the onlookers. The Lord doted on his brother. Lu Sanlang's wedding is already like this. When the Duke of Lanting gets married, won't the scene be grand enough to be recorded in the history books? The people were anxious. The Duke of Lanting's brother was already married, so why was the Duke of Lanting not interested? If Jiang Pingji was not a flower on a high mountain, they would even dream of matchmaking for her so that they could get rid of singleness and have a baby as soon as possible. What marriage? Which man in the world has the ability to marry the Duke of Lanting? Isn't it better like this now? A few of the young girls said something back in displeasure. The Duke of Lanting would be tarnished if he married anyone. It was better to marry him himself and let him choose his palace. No one is worthy, but it's not good to be single. Everyone agreed that no one was worthy of Jiang Pingji, but they also disapproved of her being single. Let's not talk about the distant, just the recent. After a decade, who would the Duke of Lanting pass his family business to? Instead of passing it to his own son, would he pass it to the son of a branch family or a brother? Who would be willing to do that? Wasn't it all for themselves and their descendants that one had to fight to the death in order to live one's life? Someone sneered and mocked, "Do you guys have nothing better to do?" The Duke of Lanting is not married, but that doesn't mean she has no guests, right? In the previous dynasty, Princess Heng Shan kept 54 handsome men. How can the Duke of Lanting lose to her? No matter who the child belongs to, as long as it is the Duke of Lanting's, the bloodline will continue. How can it be given to outsiders? Don't worry about me. The commoners nearby stopped talking. They felt that this excuse was very convincing. At the wedding banquet, the two newlyweds were shy and timid. When Jiang Pingji saw them, she could not help but feel gratified, as if she had a son who had just grown up. Even Lu Shi, who had always been displeased with Lu Zhao, smiled a little today. After forming a family, I'll be an adult. As the head of a family, I have to be prudent in my actions and words. I can't be as reckless and stupid as before. Lu Shi thought for a long time, but the words that came out of his mouth were still full of sarcasm. Lu Zhao said, "I will follow father's teachings." Lu Shi gave the gifts he had prepared early in the morning to the two newlyweds. This was prepared by Gu Min many years ago. His feelings towards Lu Zhao were very complicated. At first, he resented Lu Zhao for taking Gu Min's life. After all, he had always thought that his beloved wife had died because she was pregnant with Lu Zhao. In order to protect Lu Zhao and hide from the so-called fate, he had no choice but to remember his son as a concubine's son. He hadn't paid any attention to him for many years. By the time Lu Zhao grew up and became sensible, when he wanted to get close to him and make up for it, this child already had his own ideas and schemes. When Lu Shi found out the real cause of Gu Min's death, not only did he feel guilty facing Lu Zhao, but he also had the urge to run away. He and Gu Min gave birth to 3 sons and a daughter. 2 sons and a daughter died, and only Lu Zhao grew up and married. It would be great if Min could see this scene. Lu Zhao did not know what his father was thinking. He was the groom today and was so happy that he forgot all his worries. Zhao is a wastrel. As his wife, you should be more tired. Pay more attention to him inside and outside the mansion. If he's disobedient, remember to look for me. Jiang Pingji's words were really blunt. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over Lu Zhao's heart. I'll help you beat him up. Lu Zhao, weep weep weep, oink carrot oink, what a good sister. Was she looking for a younger sibling's wife or marrying him off to a younger brother? Jiang Pingji mocked him coldly, you're such a wastrel. No one will watch your wallet for you. Do you plan to enjoy the limelight at the beginning of the month and be poor at the end of the month? Lu Zhao, this fellow, was born to enjoy. He wore the best clothes. Every piece of clothing had to be smoked with expensive aromatherapy before he was willing to wear it. All kinds of accessories were expensive. He had to have 3 vegetables, 3 meat, and 3 soup every day for his 3 meals. If he could take a carriage when he went out, he would not get off the ground. The horse that pulled the carriage had to be a fine horse with good blood. He spent 600 strings of coins a month. What did 600 strings of coins mean? Zhang Ping and a few other technical geeks only had an annual salary of 10,000 strings of coins, which was equivalent to an annual salary of 7 million. Lu Zhao, this rascal, spent 7,200 strings of coins a year, which was equivalent to 5,040,000. The prices of goods in this era were not high, but they were not low either. It was much higher than the ancient times in the dimension of the streaming room, but it was still much lower than the modern times in the streaming room. A year's allowance was 5,040,000. Jiang Pingji did not beat this younger brother to death. It was considered true love. Jiang Pingji knew that due to the situation, Lu Zhao could only be content and be a rice worm. It was fine that he was cheated by his younger brother in the past, but if his sister-in-law and future nieces and nephews were added on, Jiang Pingji's private treasury would be emptied. Lu Zhao felt like he had nothing to live for anymore. On the other hand, the bride at the side could not help but laugh. She was no longer as nervous and perturbed as before. The wedding banquet was rigid and boring. Jiang Pingji drank a toast from the newlyweds and looked around in boredom. It had been a long time since such a joyous event had happened in Wanzhou. Everyone drank a little too much. Jiang Pingji also pretended that she could not hold her liquor. She mixed in with a group of drunkards and secretly stole the tipsy Wei Ci out. The two of them stayed in the shadow of the courtyard wall outside the manor. She secretly kissed Wei Ci. I saw that when Zhang and the others' children are already so big today. Time really flies. Wei Ci raised his hand and rubbed his flushed face. He forced himself to walk steadily. My lord, you want them too. He knew that Jiang Pingji liked children very much. It was like that in her previous life. Jiang Pingji sighed. I want them, but you won't give them to me. Wei Ci said, the timing isn't right. I'm afraid that even if I'm willing, my lord won't accept them. Wei Ci was both expectant and a little repulsed by the issue of children. Would the children in this life be the Jiang Yan and Wei Tsong of his memories? Jiang Pingji said, that's true. You're so good. How can I bear to expose you to the enemy's eyes? Wei Ci tilted his head and looked at her in confusion. He did not understand what she meant. Jiang Pingji said, you'll know in the future. I'll send you back to the manor. Remember to drink some hangover soup. She sent Wei Ci back to the manor. She hugged and kissed him for a while before leaving reluctantly. Jiang Pingji said, time passes faster. When the time comes, there won't be so many worries. Wei Ci listened to her words and could not help but laugh. The moon was high in the sky, and night fell. On this quiet night, something happened that made Jiang Pingji furious. Chapter 1400. Lang Jun, why are you looking at me like this? The bride's face was flushed, and her watery black eyes were shimmering. Lu Zhao couldn't help but look away shyly. Madam, you are very beautiful tonight. Lu Xiao said uncomfortably, the most beautiful person I have ever seen. The red candles flickered around. Lu Xiao glanced at the gourd containing the nuptial wine. The gourd was divided into two, and the stem was connected by a red thread. There was a cup of sake on each side. He swallowed his saliva unnaturally and awkwardly invited the newly appointed wife to join him for a toast. It's getting late. Madam, why don't you drink first, undress, and go to bed early? As soon as he finished speaking, the blush of shyness spread from his neck to his ears and forehead. A little sweat came out. The bride sitting opposite him smiled reservedly and said in a soft and shy voice, I will listen to Lang Jun. The two picked up half of the gourd and tilted their upper bodies slightly. It seemed like a simple action, but Lu Xiao was so nervous that even his fingers were trembling. I finished. Lu Xiao grabbed his sleeves and glanced at the bed behind the screen. Madam, why don't you rest? The bride smiled and nodded. Lu Xiao seemed to be greatly encouraged and went forward to carry her. Fortunately, his wife in his arms was not heavy. Otherwise, Lu Xiao might not be able to carry her. Not long after, there was the sound of clothes sliding in the bridal room, and the slightly ambiguous subtle movements of the newlyweds. It was the first time for Lu Xiao to eat meat. Obviously, he didn't know what temperance was. After tossing and turning for a long time, he held the soft body in his arms and prepared to rest. The two newlyweds hadn't slept for long when there was a burst of hurried and panicked footsteps outside, waking up Lu Xiao who had just fallen asleep. Madam, go to sleep first. I will go and have a look. Lu Xiao comforted his new wife, took the cloak hanging on the side, put it on, and got up to open the door. Don't you want to see what day it is? Lu Xiao was sleepy and tired at this moment, so he couldn't control his temper. He felt wronged being called on his wedding night. What happened? If it's not a big deal, I will find you tomorrow. The servant hurriedly said, Lang Jun, something big happened. What's the big deal? Lu Xiao was a little clear-headed at this moment, and an ominous premonition flashed in his heart. The servant was so anxious that he quickly reported the news, scaring Lu Xiao so much that he no longer felt sleepy. Wei Ci was assassinated and his corpse was left at the entrance of the alley. Lu Xiao's legs turned to jelly when he heard this. He more or less knew what kind of person Wei Ci was. He's dead. Who assassinated him? Lu Xiao didn't dare to imagine his sister's expression right now. Everyone in Wanzhou knew that he was one of the Duke of Lanting's trusted aides. No one expected that he would be assassinated on the night of the Duke of Lanting's brother's wedding. His bloodied body was dumped in an alley less than half a street away from Lu Xiao's mansion. Who could have predicted this? Lu Xiao remembered the heat and hurriedly went back to his room to change into regular clothes. Before he left, he told his wife's dowry maids to take good care of her. Prepare the carriage and head to Mr. Wei Ci's residence. By the time Lu Xiao arrived, there were many people patrolling the vicinity of Wei Ci's mansion. The mansion was brightly lit. Sister, Mr. Wei, Lu Xiao wasn't stopped. When he arrived at the main hall of Wei Ci's mansion, he found many familiar faces sitting or standing inside. 90% of Jiang Pingji's trusted aides were present. The few who weren't present were shining in other prefectures and devoting their limited energy to unlimited work. What's the matter? Jiang Pingji heard the commotion and looked up at him. Why are you here instead of accompanying the newlyweds in the bridal chamber? Lu Xiao was shocked when he saw Jiang Pingji's appearance. His right leg, which had just stepped out, froze inside the door. Sister, I heard that Mr. Wei was assassinated. I came over to take a look. Has the murderer been caught? Jiang Pingji stood in the hall. Her long hair draped over her shoulders. Other than a loose outer robe covering her shoulders, she only wore crescent white pajamas inside. The pajamas were dyed red with human blood. Even though most of the blood had coagulated and slowly turned from bright red to dark red, it was still a strong visual impact. Lu Xiao knew who the blood belonged to. It was either the assassin who assassinated Wei Xi or Wei Xi himself. Murderer. I didn't catch him. Jiang Pingji held the god-slaying saber in her arms. Her expression was exceptionally cold. Her eyes, which were clearly black and white, gave people the illusion that they were filled with blood. Lu Xiao could feel an aura known as murderous intent from afar. It scared him so much that the hairs on his back stood on end. Mr. Wei. Sister. My condolences. Lu Xiao carefully tiptoed into the room and found a safer corner to sit down. He didn't dare to get close to Jiang Pingji and ask for a beating. Jiang Pingji, who was in such a state, could decapitate a person with a slap. Lu Xiao didn't want her to be a widow right after he got married. Jiang Pingji said coldly, my condolences. He's not dead yet. Lu Xiao's eyes lit up. He's not dead. Then why did the servant say that Wei Xi was assassinated and his body was left at the entrance of the alley? After a while, the doctor came back with a medical box to report. The wound on Wei Xi's body wasn't fatal, but he had lost a lot of blood. If Jiang Pingji hadn't discovered it early and let him bleed for half an hour, he wouldn't have been able to survive. Now, he was lucky to be alive. Who's so vicious? Master Yuanjing said angrily, it's obvious that they want Zixiao dead. The owners of the surrounding residences were all high-ranking officials in Wanzhou. The security outside was stricter. There would be people patrolling every quarter of an hour. After Wei Xi was assassinated, he was left at the entrance of the alley not long after the previous patrol team left. There was still a quarter of an hour before the next patrol team arrived. When the patrol team found Wei Xi, his body would probably be cold. No one questioned why Jiang Pingji was the first to find Wei Xi. Even if they did, she wouldn't explain in detail. Master, it's getting late. I've sent people to keep an eye on Zixiao. I'll inform you as soon as the murderer is caught. Jiang Pingji persuaded Master Yuanjing to go back to the residence and rest. After all, he was considered old. Jiang Pingji couldn't bear for him to stay up late. She was enough to keep an eye on Wei Xi. The so-called murderer wouldn't dare to come again. No, maybe there wasn't a murderer like everyone thought. After Jiang Pingji sent Wei Xi back to the residence, she returned to her home. She had just taken a shower and changed into her pajamas when she realized that Wei Xi had left the residence. Not long after, she noticed that Wei Xi's breath of life was abnormally declining. She immediately rushed over with the god-slaying sword. From beginning to end, apart from Wei Xi, who was lying in a pool of blood, and the iron-eating beast that was squatting by his feet and scratching the ground, she didn't notice any other person's breath. Jiang Pingji saw Wei Xi's appearance and suddenly had the illusion that she had fallen into an ice house. It was as if the blood in her body was about to condense into frost. The iron-eating beast quickly crawled to her feet and hugged her leg, crying out non-stop. Jiang Pingji tore the sleeves of her pajamas into strips and quickly stopped Wei Xi's bleeding. She carried him back and called the doctor over. People who heard the news rushed over one after another. Everyone was shocked by the incident. Chapter 1401. Everyone looked at the situation and the atmosphere became more and more depressing. Lu Xi was not afraid of Jiang Pingji's stare. He entered the room and asked, "The whole city is on alert. Has the murderer been caught? Don't you know in your heart whether we can catch him or not?" Jiang Pingji asked coldly. Lu Xi smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with tolerance as if he was looking at an unreasonable child. "You should go back too. We have work to do tomorrow." Jiang Pingji sent everyone back and ignored Lu Xiao's reluctant and worried gaze. She went straight to Wei Xi's room. Lu Shi followed closely behind her. They walked through the long corridor one after the other. Jiang Pingji opened her mouth. One of the things I hate the most in my life is being threatened. Lu Shi put his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "You don't look like it. I thought you would lose control and kill someone. It seems that Wei Ci is not that important to you. At least not important enough for you to lose control and lose your mind." Was Wei Ci not important enough in her heart? No, it was just because Jiang Pingji was too rational. Jiang Pingji's emotions were all covered up by her calm face. "Are you gloating over my misfortune?" Jiang Pingji rolled her eyes at Lu Shi. Her eyes were filled with undisguised killing intent. Lu Shi said, "I warned you before not to be fooled by your own cleverness and lose the one you love." "What did you say?" The slap in the face came too fast, like a tornado. If they found Wei Ci a little later, he would be a corpse now. "I said that guy was threatening me," Jiang Pingji said. "You are the only one who is fooled by his own cleverness." "I am not." Lu Shi said, "You are still stubborn." They talked and entered Wei Ci's room one after another. The maid who was taking care of Wei Ci had just left with a basin of hot water that was stained with blood. The wound on Zixiao's body was not left by the so-called assassin. Jiang Pingji looked at Lu Shi coldly. "He did it himself." Lu Shi was shocked. It seemed that he did not hear Jiang Pingji clearly. "He did it himself." Jiang Pingji sat on the side of Wei Ci's bed and said, "I've been watching Zixiao remotely. When he left the mansion, there was no one around him. Apart from him, there was no one else at the entrance of the alley. When I arrived, I didn't sense any other unfamiliar aura either." She glanced at Wei Ci and continued, "His wound is also evidence. Whether it's the position of the blade, the marks on the wound, the depth of the wound, or the strength of the knife, all of it shows that he did it to himself. You know, Zixiao doesn't have the habit of hurting himself." Lu Shi immediately thought of his past experience and couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Could it be that that thing is controlling his body? Jiang Pingji asked, "Other than that, are there any other explanations?" Lu Shi sighed. "That thing is well hidden. If she really wanted to harm the people around you, you wouldn't be able to stop her." Jiang Pingji said, "He's threatening me. This is his warning, and he's testing who my weakness is." He hit the nail on the head. After all, Wei Ci was an ordinary person. Jiang Pingji was not afraid of the so-called main body of the system, but he was not. Lu Shi asked, "What do we do now?" As the two of them were talking, Jiang Pingji noticed that something was moving around her feet. The Iron Eater opened its mouth and spat out two objects. They fell to the ground with a crisp sound. Jiang Pingji's gaze froze and she picked them up. Zixiao took them off when he was bathing. One was the yin-yang jade pendant she gave him, and the other was the seal given by Zhenren Liuru. "Where's the other seal?" Of course, the Iron Eater didn't understand what she was talking about. It lay next to Wei Ci sadly and couldn't help but stick out its tongue to lick his fingertips. Jiang Pingji looked around and found another seal that Wei Ci had consecrated. She found the second seal in Changye, but Wei Ci felt that it was a burial object of his ancestors and shouldn't be carried around, so he worshipped it respectfully. She looked at the three small objects in her palm and sighed helplessly. The three objects had the effect of suppressing evil spirits and preventing evil spirits from invading. Jiang Pingji let Wei Ci wear them to protect him. Unexpectedly, Lu Shi asked, "What did you find?" Jiang Pingji asked him, "You guessed it. The position of the system's main body, right?" Lu Shi raised one of his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "Wei Ci is just one of my guesses." Jiang Pingji said, "These three objects have the effect of suppressing evil spirits and preventing them from appearing. It seems that the stray dog was previously trapped in Zixiao's body. Fortunately, it escaped tonight. Before it escaped, it controlled Zixiao's body to injure itself to show off to me. Lu, she said, that seems to be the case. Jiang Pingji sneered and said, of course, there may be another possibility. Another possibility. Jiang Pingji sneered and said, it was originally hiding in someone else's body and has been secretly looking for my weakness and weakness. Taking advantage of this opportunity, it sneaked into Zixiao's body and caused the so-called injuries to confuse our vision and judgment. Lu, she raised his eyebrows. No matter what speculation it is, it's not a good thing for you. If it was the first possibility, the enemy was in the dark and Jiang Pingji was out in the open. It would be too passive. If it was the second possibility, and Wei Ci was her precious sweetheart, even if she had the god-slaying sword, she wouldn't be able to kill Wei Ci. Even if Jiang Pingji could do it, the system's main body was a spiritual mass without a physical body. Wei Ci's death wouldn't affect it. Jiang Pingji raised her hands and gently tied 2 seals on both sides of Wei Ci's waist. She also put the yin-yang jade pendant on him. No matter what the situation is, it's naturally not a good thing. Jiang Pingji asked him, which one do you think it is? It's hard to say. That guy has always been cunning. Lu, she said, are you just going to swallow this anger? It was really not her style. Jiang Pingji sneered and pulled out the god-slaying sword. She said, how is that possible? Lu, she was so shocked that he took a step back. You want to kill me? Jiang Pingji said, of course not. Although I have killed many allies, it was after the end of our cooperation. After that, Jiang Pingji sat down beside Wei Ci and closed her eyes to immerse herself in her mind. In the empty mind, the 2 spiritual masses of the subsystem floated quietly. Sensing Jiang Pingji's arrival, the 2 subsystems woke up at the same time. They were imprisoned by Jiang Pingji and didn't know what was happening in the outside world. At that moment, they looked at Jiang Pingji with the god-slaying sword in her hand. The 2 subsystems were so scared that their hair stood on end. It was impossible for ordinary weapons to appear in this special area, but the god-slaying sword was an exception. They had a natural fear of the god-slaying sword. You! What are you doing here? System number 1 stammered. Chapter 1402. Again. Subsystem number 1 said angrily, Jiang Pingji, you haven't had your period for a few years. Has all the blood rushed to your brain? Subsystem number 2 was also very timid, but since subsystem number 1 spoke up to embolden it, it was fine for it to jump out and say a few words. Last time you came to threaten us, you also said you would send us to the Western Paradise. Do you really think the Western Paradise belongs to you? The 2 subsystems cooperated to taunt her. Jiang Pingji had imprisoned them for many years without doing anything, so they gradually felt at ease. Even if Jiang Pingji came with the god-slaying sword, they still didn't believe that she would really do anything to them. Is she not afraid of the main body of the system? Is she willing to idle in the streaming room of 2 dimensions? Humph, the thunder is louder than the rain. Whoever is afraid is a puppy. The subsystems silently encouraged themselves, but Jiang Pingji, who should have been in a frenzy, only smiled coldly. Their eyelids twitched, and they panicked for no reason. Jiang Pingji stood not far away. The god-slaying sword was unsheathed, and the shiny blade emitted a chilling cold light. Subsystem number 1 said dryly, hey, give us some reaction. We are very nervous when you are like this. Jiang Pingji tilted her head and sneered. Her black, shoulder-length hair slid down her shoulders to the front, and her thick black hair covered half of her face. If something happens to you, your main body will feel it, right? Unlike her usual energetic voice, Jiang Pingji's voice sounded more like rusty blunt weapons rubbing against each other, and it made one's scalp tingle. The two subsystems were frightened by this situation, and they even had the urge to hug each other and shiver to keep each other warm. The two subsystems pouted and said, "How would we know? If you want to know, why don't you try?" Jiang Pingji snorted and agreed, "What you said makes sense." Subsystem number 1 was stunned for a moment, and the ominous feeling grew stronger. What did she mean? What did she mean? Ha, of course she meant to kill you. You're crazy. Before subsystem number 1 could scream and struggle to escape, Jiang Pingji had already approached with her sword. The god-slaying sword, which was usually ordinary, actually glowed with a faint blue light, and it pulsed with a strange, chilling energy. This strange energy did not have much effect on ordinary creatures, but it was fatal to virtual creatures that were a combination of pure energy and spirit. Subsystem number 1 was only a part of the main body. Even the main body of the system did not dare to go head-on with the god-slaying saber, much less little slice. I don't care what the so-called main body of the system wants to do or what he's plotting against me. Whether he wants to steal my work or take my life. I don't care. I'll just deal with whatever comes my way. Of all the things he shouldn't have done, he shouldn't have touched one of my people, and he should have never touched one of them. Jiang Pingji pulled her sword back and realized that system number 1 did not dissipate as she had expected. The concentrated spiritual energy turned into thousands of rays of blue light and was devoured by the god-slaying sword. A part of the tattered totem appeared on the blade that was originally shiny and clean. She glanced at him and sneered. That plain patrol merchant had given him the god-slaying saber because he wanted to make use of it. The god-slaying saber didn't kill subsystem number 1 completely. Instead, it erased its mental wave and absorbed its mental energy. System number 2 saw it and roared in a shrill voice, "Jiang Pingji, what did you do?" She actually did it. Jiang Pingji glanced at it and said coldly, "This saber has been tampered with. It seems to only be used to imprison. It doesn't seem to make a difference whether you're imprisoned here or in the saber. Why are you acting like this? Can't you see your friends later? Imprison my ass." System number 2 roared in despair. "You don't know anything." The god-slaying saber did not completely kill system number 1, but it erased its independent consciousness and absorbed all the pure spiritual energy that had been stripped away. This explanation was a little complicated, so let's use a simple example. Subsystem number 1 was a living person with self-consciousness. The god-slaying saber wiped away its self-consciousness, beat its soul back to its most primitive form, and absorbed it. Jiang Pingji looked at its reaction and her gloomy mood improved a little. "Your reaction is so intense. It seems like the god-slaying saber's damage to system number 1 is more serious than killing it directly." System number 2 suppressed the answer that slipped out of its mouth. Jiang Pingji's guess was correct. "There's no hurry. I'll reunite you with it now." She sneered and drew her saber. The blue light on the saber was more dazzling than before. It swallowed system number 2's screams in an instant. When the god-slaying saber absorbed system number 2, Jiang Pingji examined the saber with rapt attention and found that there was an additional pure spiritual energy inside. Apart from this pure spiritual energy, she also found a faint white fog-like object nearby. There was an extremely thin tube between the two, like a straight straw. The white fog-like object was trying its best to absorb the spiritual energy through this tube. Every time it absorbed, the white fog-like object would tremble and make a weak, bang sound. She studied it for a while but did not make any progress, so she simply withdrew from the mental brain domain. Jiang Pingji suddenly opened her eyes. She acutely smelled that the smell of blood in the air had increased. After a while, she heard Lu Shi's rather helpless voice. "If you're awake, why don't you come and take a look? There's something wrong with your little lover." Jiang Pingji shuddered and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong with Zixiao?" Wei Xi's face was much paler than before. Large beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. The sweat rolled down and wet the pillow. He looked like he was in extreme pain. If Lu Shi had not pressed him down to prevent him from moving, the wound that had just been bandaged would have burst open again. I don't know. Not long after you closed your eyes to meditate, he almost jumped up like a carp. Lu Shi had just finished speaking and could not help but complain, this person looks like a woman, but he's still a man. He's much stronger than ordinary women. Jiang Pingji asked Lu Shi, and then he vomited blood. Didn't you see that half of his face was covered in blood? He looks like he's possessed. As he spoke, Lu Shi leaped over and sat on Wei Si's body, holding his limbs down. Jiang Pingji glanced at his posture and resisted the urge to stab Lu Shi. I just killed 2 system clones. The main body had a premonition. He couldn't touch me, so he targeted Zixiao. Lu Shi suddenly reacted and said in surprise, so, that guy is now on Wei Si's body. Jiang Pingji rolled her eyes at him. If that's not the case, why would I hang all 3 things on Zixiao? The 2 seals and the yin-yang jade pendant could all imprison the main body of the system. Jiang Pingji was planning to close the door and beat the dog. Lu Shi broke into a cold sweat. Chapter 1403. Jiang Pingji said, he can't kill Zixiao. If he can't kill him, then he can do this. Lu Shi said, be careful, he's too smart for his own good. If he can't even kill Wei Si, how can he keep his dignity as a god? Being in a relationship with Jiang Pingji was like forming an alliance with her. He had to be mentally prepared to be killed by her at any time. Lu Shi suddenly sympathized with Wei Si. It was fine if he was unlucky, but how could he be so blind that he fell for such a woman? You don't understand. It's better for the main body to choose someone else than Zixiao. Lu Shi wanted to ask more, but Jiang Pingji said, I'm going to settle the score with that thing. Be filial to him. If anything happens to him, don't blame me for disregarding the father-daughter relationship and killing you. Lu Shi was speechless. Asterisk asterisk, asterisk asterisk. In any case, the father and daughter have been filial for so many years. How could they suddenly fall out with each other? Couldn't they have some father-daughter friendship? What are you going to do? Lu Shi forced himself to calm down. Jiang Pingji said, the main body of the system has no physical body. In theory, it can only rely on special carriers, such as the yin-yang jade. But I've confirmed that the yin-yang jade that I gave Zixiao is not the carrier of the main body of the system. If I can't find its carrier, this operation won't kill it, but it's good to collect some interest. I'll invade Zixiao's spirit later to find the main body of evil. Jiang Pingji sat down with her sword and closed her eyes. Lu Shi's eyes widened not long after. What did he see? He saw a slender and voluptuous mature woman in a neat military uniform appear next to Jiang Pingji. She seemed to see him too. She nodded slightly and turned into a ball of blue light that disappeared between Wei Si's eyebrows. After a while, Wei Si, who was struggling unconsciously, calmed down. Lu Shi was relieved. At the same time, Jiang Pingji's spirit body passed through a thick fog. She faintly saw a bright but not dazzling light coming from ahead. After crossing this layer of light, the originally chaotic and empty scene immediately turned into a bustling market. Jiang Pingji frowned. Is this Zixiao's spiritual brain? She turned and jumped onto a nearby building. With a light tap of her toes, she left the bustling market with a few leaps and ran toward the familiar scent. Jiang Pingji took a few glances and determined that this was Wei Si's past life, or rather, the most precious memory in his heart. Everyone had their own mental brain region. Every mental brain region was a virtual world, and it was also a reflection of one's inner world. Jiang Pingji's mental brain domain was very simple. It was filled with active mental energy, monotonous and boring. However, it was different for Wei Ci. This was the first time she had seen such a vivid and exquisite mental virtual world. Jiang Pingji could do that too, but she couldn't mimic the smell of sunlight as well as Wei Ci could. After all, she was a martial artist who valued violence above all else. She could fight, but she had no artistic talent at all. "Why are you leaning on the wall of my house?" As she was lost in thought, Jiang Pingji heard the soft voice of a child coming from under the wall. Jiang Pingji was surprised. She looked in the direction of the sound and found a fat boy with tears on his face sitting in the corner of the wall. "Are you talking to me?" Jiang Pingji pointed at herself. The boy could see her. Could it be that the boy in front of her was an extremely important person to Wei Ci, so he came alive in his spiritual world? Jiang Pingji noticed that many people's faces in the market were very blurry. This meant that Wei Ci's memory of them was very shallow. The boy in front of her looked delicate and cute. His eyes were dark and bright under his thick eyelashes, and Jiang Pingji liked him. "Of course I'm talking to you. Are you from a foreign country?" The boy raised his hand to wipe away the tears on his face. His eyes were as red as a rabbit's. "A foreign country?" Jiang Pingji lowered her head and glanced at her attire. She had not worn the federal military uniform for a long time. She pulled out the god-slaying sword and used the reflection of the blade to clearly see her current appearance. It was not the familiar face of Lu Shi, but the face she had used for more than 40 years in her past life. Jiang Pingji's beauty in her past life was needless to say. Every time the army recruited new recruits, the adjutant liked to use her refined image to deceive the new recruits who graduated from the military school. Even if she had a cold and aloof face, outsiders would feel that she was exuding strong hormones. When she wore a solemn and orderly military uniform, outsiders would also feel that it was a uniform temptation. In the words of the salted fish in the streaming room, she could rely on her face to make a living, but she had to rely on her fists. The only difference was probably the color of her hair. Jiang Pingji twirled a lock of hair with her fingers and frowned slightly. Her original hair color was pure black, but now it was a warm and flamboyant fiery red. Coupled with the exotic vixen face, it was no wonder that the boys suspected that she was from a foreign country. Speaking of which, how did her hair change color? "I'm from a foreign country. Do you know where this place is?" The boy was a little depressed. "Of course I'm from my home." Jiang Pingji looked at him and asked, "This is a very remote corner. Why are you here? Where are the servants?" The boy's attire seemed simple, but it was made of fine silk. It was not something that a child from an ordinary family could afford. She did not know which of her words had touched the boy's sore spot, but he actually cried again. Jiang Pingji could only carry him and comfort him. The boy was not afraid of strangers. Instead, he felt that Jiang Pingji made him feel very warm and at ease. Who was Jiang Pingji? If she wanted to get information out of someone, she would definitely be able to get information out of the coffins that the person's ancestors were sleeping in, let alone a boy. Jiang Pingji won the boy's trust with a few words. The boy's nickname was Fusho. He had just celebrated his 4th birthday a while ago. His father named him Kang. That day was the memorial day of the boy's mother, a concubine in the backyard who was not valued at all. The boy saw that his father did not pay any attention to the memorial day of his mother at all. He went to the palace early in the morning to teach the princess's studies. He felt very sad. He held a piece of silver in his hand and planned to sneak out of the manor to buy some offerings for his mother so that she would not be too lonely in the underworld. Who knew that he was small and weak? Even if he secretly got rid of the servants, he could not leave the manor. He spent a long time piling up a few stones. When he stepped on them, he could not reach the wall of the courtyard. Instead, he fell down. That was why he cried for a long time until Jiang Pingji appeared on the wall. "Why don't I bring you to buy it?" Jiang Pingji touched the boy's head. So this was Fushou. He worshipped his birth mother on the memorial day. Wasn't this child afraid that his real mother would spank him? Jiang Pingji took Fushou out of the manor and bought paper money, candles, and fruits for the memorial. She looked at him hugging the basket in satisfaction and found it funny. Fushou's birth mother was just a concubine. Her memorial tablet was not qualified to be placed in the ancestral hall. It could only be placed in a small courtyard in the corner of the manor. Jiang Pingji was smiling as she watched the boy burn paper money for his birth mother when a flurry of footsteps came from outside. She turned over and leaped onto the beam of the roof. The door suddenly opened. Fushou. The man who came in was obviously anxious. Seeing that the boy was squatting on the ground, he suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. Father, father. The boy was so scared that he stood up and hung his head aggrievedly. Without waiting for the man to say anything, the girl who was about 10 years old raised her eyebrows and said with a smile. Chapter 1404. Grand Tutor. Zixiao. Jiang Pingji secretly looked down and saw Wei Xiai, who was much more mature. Wei Xiai looked like he was in his 30s. He had the charm of a mature man. He was dressed in a blue scholar's robe and had a tall and straight posture. His dark eyes were still familiar to her. But Wei Xiai had grown a beard, and his beard was neatly trimmed. Although it was not thick and did not look sloppy, it covered up some of his beauty. He looked more mature and serious, and less youthful and energetic. For Jiang Pingji, who had a strong preference for good looks, she still liked the fair and beardless Wei Xiai. What was so good about having a beard? It was easy to dirty the corners of one's mouth when eating, and it was troublesome to clean up. It would stab when they were intimate. Jiang Pingji squatted on the beam and muttered to herself. The three people below did not seem to notice her. They talked on their own. Fushou was anxious and fearful. When he heard a familiar voice, he suddenly raised his head and looked at the girl with tears in his eyes. He bowed to the girl with a sobbing voice. Fushou pays his respects to Her Highness. The girl smiled gently. You don't have to be so polite in private. Was Fushou paying respects to his birth mother just now? Even if she was dressed in luxurious clothes and had a high status, she was like a cute and gentle big sister next door. Fushou was immediately cured. Fushou nodded with grievance. His little face was miserable, and his white and fat fingers were twisted into a bowl. Without his father's permission, he went out of the manor to buy offerings for his lowly birth mother and burned them in the courtyard. It was a big taboo. Now he was caught red-handed by the crown princess, who was visiting. Fushou did not know how angry his father would be. Fushou was young, but he was emotionally sensitive. Just from the servants in the manor avoiding his birth mother like snakes and scorpions, he knew that his father did not like his birth mother. He did not even remember the day of her death. He did not want his birth mother to be lonely in the underworld, but he did not want to be hated by his father. He was in a dilemma. Fushou is very filial. The crown princess smiled and rubbed the little knot on his head. She said gently, "It's nothing to pay respects in private. However, there are many ways to express filial piety. If outsiders see it, it will inevitably damage the reputation of the Grand Tutor." Fushou said with tears in his eyes, "Will that happen?" In the past few days, the people have been busy preparing for His Majesty's birthday. That is a day for the whole country to celebrate. The crown princess sighed and said, "You burn sacrifices in private in the mansion. Those who know about it will say that your filial piety is commendable, but those who don't will think that you are evil. Do you understand?" How would Fushou know about this? He even found out about his mother's death anniversary by chance. Although the birthday was an important festival, he was still young, so he only knew that on this day, the mansion was particularly happy. Even his father, who was always as cold as water, would show a little smile. Last year, he even took him to the night market to see the lanterns. Now that Her Highness had mentioned it, he knew that the day of his birth mother's death had coincided with His Majesty's birthday. Fusho scratched his small face and apologized to Her Royal Highness sister. He seriously said that he had learned a lesson. That's right. Burning Joss paper money for the dead is not filial. Fusho should listen to Grand Tutor's words and learn seriously from him. When you grow up, you will be a talented person. If your biological mother knows this, she will be happy. Don't you think so? Fusho nodded solemnly. Your Highness. Wei Xiai, who was on the side, interrupted the conversation between the two with slight disapproval. Why is Grand Tutor so cautious? If Fusho becomes a talent in the future, will Grand Tutor be able to restrain him for a lifetime? The smile on Crown Princess Changxing's face faded slightly. She said seriously, I treat him like a younger brother. I will take care of him in the future. Wei Xi's expression was complicated. How could Fusho know about the eye contact between Crown Princess and his father? He clenched his fist and said, then Fusho should be as knowledgeable as father, become a famous scholar, and be a Grand Tutor in the future. The smile on Changxing's face was slightly stiff. She pinched Fusho's chubby face with regret. This is difficult. Feng Yu is much more knowledgeable than you. Even if you want to be a Grand Tutor, you have to win against him. Fusho pouted in frustration. He knew who Feng Yu was, the sickly man who always pinched his face behind his back and said that he was fat. He didn't like Feng Yu, but his father often praised Feng Yu in front of him. This was a great blow to his young heart. Why must I win against him? Fusho said, he is so much older than Fusho. It's not fair. Princess Changxing crossed her arms over her chest and said with a smile, because I decided on him. Fusho said, because he is the study companion of Your Highness's sister? Changxing said, it's more or less related to this, but the most important thing is that he is liked by me. Fusho said dejectedly, is Fusho not liked by Your Highness's sister? Changxing rubbed Fusho's chubby face. You silly child, my liking for Fusho is different from my liking for Feng Yu. Isn't liking just liking? Of course, Fusho didn't understand. The only two people who understood couldn't say anything. They could only wear a cold smile on their faces at the same time. Wei Xiai secretly planned to settle the score with Feng Zhen. How did he teach his son? How old was His Highness this year? Jiang Pingji planned to provoke Wan Xiu later and strangle Feng Zhen's pocket money so that he would completely become a sadhu. Changxing smiled and coaxed Fusho. She asked Wei Xiai to take Fusho to change into clean clothes and prepare to go out to play. Her Majesty was born on the Flower Festival, so the day of her birth coincided with the festival. There were many and lively activities among the people. It was one of the most lively festivals of the year. Can you come down now? After coaxing Wei Xiai and Fusho away, the smile on Changxing's face suddenly disappeared. She looked straight at the beam. Jiang Pingji jumped down gracefully. Changxing subconsciously took half a step back. When she saw Jiang Pingji's face, her eyes flashed with amazement. A foreigner. What's your purpose in hiding on the beam? Her facial features were different from the Central Plain style. She had flamboyant fiery red hair on her head. It was like a bonfire on her head. She didn't have to look to know that this was not the appearance that a person from the Central Plains should have. Changxing wanted to ask in detail, but she suddenly saw the god-slaying sword on her waist. She couldn't help but be furious. A thief who trespassed into the palace. It was one thing to steal things, but to steal from the head of a country. This foreigner was very bold. Without another word, Changxing wanted to make a move. The guards guarding outside the house also rushed in. Jiang Pengji, of course, fled immediately. Changxing was young, but her martial arts were extraordinary. However, her skills were not enough. Jiang Pengji fled. Changxing stared in the direction she escaped with a complicated gaze. Send people to block the various city gates. Once you find this red-haired foreigner, capture him immediately. If he resists, kill him without mercy. Her appearance was so striking that she could be recognized wherever she went. She actually sneaked into the palace to steal her mother's sword. This thief was extremely bold. Fushou greets Her Majesty. By the time Changxing ran to meet up with Wei Ci and the rest, she happened to see Fushou bowing with all his might, and almost fell forward. The Her Majesty that Fushou spoke of was a rather beautiful woman. She looked like she was in her early 30s. She smiled and supported Fushou. She lifted him up and weighed him. Fushou shyly covered his face with his chubby hands. Fushou can walk by himself. Chapter 1405. Changxing, she really did not want to admit that the woman who looked like a human trafficker was her mother. Mother, God-slaying, Changxing stepped forward and was about to salute when she suddenly saw the long saber worn by the woman's waist. A trace of astonishment flashed across her eyes. 2 God-slaying sabers? Could it be that the foreign woman did not steal her mother's saber and she misunderstood? That was true. The palace was heavily guarded and her mother was strong. It was almost impossible to break through the layers of obstacles and steal the God-slaying saber. What's wrong? The woman asked her with a smile. Changxing recounted everything that had happened just now in great detail and said with slight embarrassment, I was reckless and almost caused an unjust case. It's good to know one's mistake and correct it. Just send someone to withdraw the order. If you meet him, send someone to give him some silver as compensation. Changxing whispered. The 4 of them got on the carriage. Wei Ci took the initiative to put a curtain hat on the woman's face. Fushou sat on the woman's lap. He seemed to be very used to this kind of intimate interaction. He asked with a smile, Your Majesty, where are we going? The flower festival is also a birthday. We are going out for a spring parade and have fun with the people. The woman smiled and said, Does Fushou not like to go? Fushou pursed his lips and said, Of course not, but, his eyes wandered and looked pitifully at Crown Princess Changxing, as if asking if he could say it. Changxing said, Today seems to be the death anniversary of Fushou's birth mother. He is very filial, I am afraid it is not good for him to play freely. The woman's expression froze for a moment. I see, Fushou is very filial. Touching the small knot on Fushou's head, Fushou showed a shy smile. For him, His Majesty's praise was as precious as his father's. One sentence could make him happy for a long time. There were many tourists outside. Wei Ci and the others were dressed plainly. The woman and Changxing wore a curtain hat to cover their faces. No one discovered their identity. Fushou insisted on walking on his own. He held the woman in one hand and Wei Ci in the other. He ran 2 steps with a smile and suddenly jumped up. Fly, Changxing followed a step or 2 behind the 3. Watching Fushou swing, she could not help but curl her lips and say, childish. Fushou didn't hear her words and continued to play. The 2 adults were also happy to cooperate. The woman looked back at her daughter and said with a smile, Changxing wants to try too. Changxing looked at her mother, the grand tutor, and herself. She coldly rejected this unreasonable suggestion. Although she was still young, she had grown very quickly. She was almost as tall as a 13 or 14-year-old boy. With his height, how could he imitate Fushou, who was fat and short, to play on the swing? The 4 of them were like an ordinary family taking a stroll in the spring. When they were tired, they sat on the ground and tasted the food they had prepared early in the morning. Fu Shou would eat independently, but he was not skilled. He often smeared food residue on the corner of his mouth, and the woman tirelessly helped him wipe it. Changxing looked at the two of them with mixed feelings until she handed over a handkerchief that emitted the fragrance of honey locust. Grand Tutor. Changxing called out in slight embarrassment. Wei Ci could not help but smile. He picked a few of Changxing's favorite foods for her. Grand Tutor, I am no longer a child. Although he said so, his actions were honest and he didn't hesitate to eat. The Grand Tutor's culinary skills could crush the royal chefs. In my eyes, Your Highness is always a distance away from adulthood. As soon as he finished speaking, Fu Shou also noticed the situation. He shouted and opened his mouth. Fu Shou wants it too. Ah, no, the Grand Tutor prepared it for me. Why are you snatching it? Changxing finished the plate in 2 or 3 bites. Fu Shou saw the situation and immediately gave up. Hum hum hum, hum carrot hum, Her Highness's sister could not argue with him. The family of 4 was eating. Changxing caught a glimpse of a fiery red color from the corner of her eyes. Her gaze froze. That foreigner is here too. The woman asked in surprise, Foreigner? Which one? Changxing pointed. Sure enough, she saw a voluptuous and strangely dressed woman leaning on the treetop with her arms crossed. While they were looking at Jiang Pingji, she was also looking at them. The knife in her arms is really similar to the god-slaying knife. No wonder you mistook it. The woman saw Jiang Pingji's face. She had no other reaction except for some admiration. Fu Shou was stunned for a moment. He suddenly said, This big sister helped Fu Shou just now. If she had not carried him over the wall to buy offerings, it would have been impossible for Fu Shou's small body to climb over the wall and leave the manor. Among the 4 people, only Wei Ci's reaction was slightly strange. His expression stiffened for a moment, but this strangeness was fleeting. It was difficult to see with the naked eye. If Jiang Pingji's observation was not excellent, she might have missed it. She said with a smile, After searching for a long time, it turns out to be here. You stayed in Zixiao's spiritual world and disguised as him. You're obviously bullying him because he doesn't know how to use his spiritual energy to fight back, right? Without waiting for Wei Ci to say anything, Jiang Pingji directly pulled out her knife and rushed down from the tree. The blade went straight for his face. The woman and Changxing at the side saw the situation and were horrified. They seemed to want to stop her. Jiang Pingji's expression was slightly cold. She shouted at the 2 of them, Get lost. Don't ruin my plan. As soon as she finished speaking, the originally lively place instantly became silent. The surrounding tourists turned into smoke and disappeared without a trace. Only Jiang Pingji and Wei Ci were left. Her blade did not have the slightest hindrance. She slashed at Wei Ci's vital parts. It was obvious that she wanted to kill him. Wei Ci's expression changed drastically. He barely managed to dodge the blade of the god-slaying knife. This is Wei Ci. You want to kill him too? Jiang Pingji spat and said disdainfully, An 18th-tier imposter wants to be on par with my Zixiao. You're just standing there, and I can smell the strong scent of an imposter. If I don't kill you, who should I kill? Do you really think you can impersonate me by wearing Zixiao's face? Wei Ci's expression could not help but twist. When he saw Jiang Pingji's flamboyant red hair, his expression instantly darkened by 7 or 8 degrees. It was comparable to a constipated face. I say. Can you not make such an unsightly expression with Zixiao's face? As she spoke, Jiang Pingji's attacks came like a storm. This was Wei Ci's spiritual realm. She and the imposter in front of her were considered outsiders. Their movements would be restricted. Under such circumstances, they could only use force to fight. The impostor gritted his teeth and said, "You're indeed a child of the Jiang family. You're actually not dead yet." Jiang Pingji was stunned. "What do you mean?" The impostor refused to speak. Jiang Pingji was relentless. As the two of them fought, the impostor realized that something was wrong. He became more and more gloomy. "You feel it, don't you?" Jiang Pingji sneered. "Xixiao is an ordinary person, but his spiritual realm is exceptionally strong. It's almost comparable to your peak state. You could have chosen anyone, but you chose Xixiao. Aren't you courting death?" The impostor was stubborn. "That's impossible." Chapter 1406. With every word Jiang Pingji said, the impostor's face darkened. The mental brain of an ordinary person was very weak. He could tear it apart with a wave of his hand and cause irreversible mental damage to the original owner. Wei Xi's mental world was rather stable. It was like a sturdy cage that prevented creatures from breaking out of it. Even if Wei Xi had been reborn, his mental brain was at most slightly stronger than an ordinary person's, but it was not to this extent. What did this look like? It was like a trap that had been set long ago, waiting for the prey to take the bait. It was obvious who was the hunter and who was the prey. "Do you think you can kill me?" Seeing this, the impostor revealed a sinister smile. "How will you know if you don't try?" Jiang Pingji was not affected at all. Her god-slaying saber swept dangerously past the impostor's neck, leaving a long, bright red line. This injury was only slightly more serious than a mosquito bite on an ordinary person, but the impostor felt as if she was being burned by a raging fire. Her face quickly turned pale. "Bastard of the Jiang family." The impostor gritted her teeth and said, "If I had known this would happen, I would have killed them all back then." Jiang Pingji's eyes flashed dangerously after she heard this. She did not care about her background, but it did not mean that she would not get to the bottom of it if there was a hidden story. "This is the second time you've mentioned the Jiang family. What do you mean?" Did it mean that the impostor in front of her came from the same world as her? Seeing that Jiang Pingji's attack was slightly less aggressive, he smiled maliciously. "What do I mean?" "I mean, I'll kill your entire family." "What?" Jiang Pingji looked a little stunned. Her entire body froze for a moment. There was a flaw. The impostor was overjoyed. She switched from defense to offense and attacked Jiang Pingji's vital point. Unexpectedly, this was a flaw that Jiang Pingji deliberately revealed. Not only did she not let the impostor succeed, but she also flipped the handle of the saber. The blade pierced through the impostor's hand from top to bottom and stabbed it into the ground. "Now, we can have a proper talk." Jiang Pingji smiled wickedly and stepped on the impostor's back to prevent her from turning around. She grabbed the impostor's chin with one hand and forced her to look up at her. "What did you mean by, kill my whole family?" As you know, the god-slaying saber is just an ordinary saber against normal creatures. However, against a virtual spiritual creature like you, which is a combination of pure energy and mental strength, it is fatal. Even a small wound can cause great damage. The impostor snorted and ignored Jiang Pingji's threat. Jiang Pingji said, "Tisk, aren't you quite strong-willed? Are you really determined not to confess?" As she said that, the hand holding the hilt of the knife ground twice, the blade stirring the wound on the impostor's hand. With the wound as the center, the impostor's hands turned from solid to solid spiritual energy. Then, the spiritual energy turned into blue light and was greedily absorbed by the god-slaying saber. Jiang Pingji clearly saw the fear and despair in the impostor's eyes. "If you tell me, I might spare your life." She coaxed the impostor with a seductive tone. The impostor snorted coldly. Of course, she would not believe Jiang Pingji's words. Do you think I can't find out what I want to know if you refuse to tell me? Jiang Pingji bent down and used a little force with the tip of her foot to break the imposter's spine. She raised her hand and held his face as he rushed toward her. She sneered and said, "Don't forget, this is Zixiao's spiritual brain region. You and I are both virtual bodies solidified by our spiritual consciousness. If one side is weak and the other is strong, then the weaker side is equivalent to running away in front of the stronger side. As long as I want to, I can destroy your virtual body. Tell me, what can you hide from me?" After hearing that, the imposter's face turned as white as snow. "I thought, with this face, you would at least show some mercy." He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. When a normal person saw their lover hurting them, most people would say, "I don't believe it, I don't believe it." However, Jiang Pingji did not play by the rules and hit him even more fiercely. "You're wearing Zixiao's face and acting coquettishly. Of course, I can't tolerate it. How can I show mercy?" As soon as she finished speaking, she let go of the imposter's chin, grabbed his hair, and pressed him to the ground. An illusory but sticky flame appeared in the palm of her hand. Like a wildfire, it quickly spread from her palm to the imposter's head and limbs. Without waiting for the imposter to scream, Jiang Pingji let go of her hand. The god-slaying sword was afraid that the imposter would be incinerated by the flames, so it hurriedly increased the speed of absorption. In the time it took to take a breath, the imposter was completely incinerated. A small part of the totem on the body of the sword was completed. Jiang Pingji also obtained the information she wanted. She pulled the long sword out of the ground and found that the totem on the body of the sword was one size bigger, but it was still incomplete. It was obvious that the imposter was not the main body of the system. She curled her lips and said uninterestedly, "TSK, I thought it was a big fish. I didn't expect it to be another shrimp." She observed the size of the totem and found that 1/3 of the totem pattern on the body of the sword had been restored. Previously, it was only 1/10. Although it was a shrimp, this small shrimp was fatter than the 2 systems that Jiang Pingji had killed. "I felt that something was wrong when I didn't find the special carrier that the system was attached to. I didn't expect it to really be sliced. The system was really arrogant. It had sliced itself so many times in a row. Wasn't it afraid of being divided?" Jiang Pingji hurriedly absorbed the information she wanted. Her expression became gloomy. She had never thought that the mystery of her past life would be revealed in this life. However, all of this was no longer important. "It's more important to find Zixiao first." Jiang Pingji sheathed the god-slaying sword and hung it on her waist. Because of the commotion just now, all the living people in the spiritual world had disappeared. Only she and the architectural landscape were left. Where was Wei Ci at this moment? Not long after Jiang Pingji killed the imposter, he woke up from the long darkness. He raised his hand to touch his hands, feet, and chest. His expression was a little blank and absent-minded. If she remembered correctly, he seemed to have been injured before he fainted. Just as she was wondering, an unfamiliar female voice came from afar. "Zixiao." Who was calling him? Wei Ci sat under a tree. It took him a lot of effort to stand up with the help of the tree trunk. Just as he was about to see who it was, a red light flashed in front of his eyes. The newcomer threw him to the ground in a bear hug, almost causing him to lose his breath. The 2 of them rolled on the ground twice in a sorry state. "My lady, please conduct yourself with dignity." Although Wei Ci did not see the other party's face clearly, the 2 of them rolled on the ground twice. The other party's gender was already exposed. "Ah! Zixiao, you're so heartless. You actually asked me to conduct myself with dignity. When have I not conducted myself with dignity?" An unfamiliar voice, but a familiar feeling. Wei Ci stopped pushing her away. "Are you a foreigner?" Who was this strange red-haired foreign woman in front of him? Jiang Pingji sat on top of him. She raised her hand to push aside her messy red hair and moved closer to him. The tip of her nose was against the tip of her nose, and her eyes were slightly narrowed. She bent her index finger and hooked the front of his shirt, revealing her smooth and delicate collarbone. She smiled and said, "I've changed into a disguise. Zixiao, you can't recognize me." There were 4 people in the family, but 3 of them said she was a foreigner. What happened to loving her soul and not her appearance? Chapter 1407. Zixiao, you've hurt my heart. If you don't believe me, feel it. It's so painful that it's bleeding. Jiang Pingji pressed down on Wei Xi forcefully while she pitifully grabbed his hand to touch her chest. She almost scared the conservative Wei Xi out of his wits. It was fine in the past. After all, a man and a woman were alone in a room. But now, they were in the wilderness. It was so embarrassing. My lord. Although they were separated by the material of her clothes, Jiang Pingji's figure was not fake. Wei Xi's palm could easily feel the fullness. Jiang Pingji leaned over and said, "Why? Have you recognized me?" Even though Wei Xi had experienced 2 lives, as a person who conformed to the rules in his private life, he really could not stand Jiang Pingji's boldness. "Are you really my lord?" He blinked his eyes in disbelief. The woman with enchanting eyebrows and a deep-set face in front of him, was she really his lord? "Yes, I'm really your lord," Jiang Pingji said. Could it be that Zixiao dislikes my inhuman appearance? To the ancient people, the Han family of the Central Plains was a clan. Everyone other than the Han were barbarians, not to mention the barbarians with blonde hair and blue eyes or black bodies. Although Jiang Pingji's appearance was not that exaggerated, her flamboyant red hair was enough to classify her as a foreigner. Wei Xi naturally did not mean that. He just did not expect Jiang Pingji to look like this. "My lord." He called out to her with slight discomfort. Can you let me get up and tidy up my appearance?" After he finished speaking, he tried to withdraw his right hand. How could Jiang Pingji let him succeed? She refused to let go. In just a few moves, she had unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a large part of his fair chest. "Zixiao, do you know how sad I am every time you reject me?" Wei Xi did not hold back. She was about to become a teenage mutant ninja turtle. What kind of world was this? "My lord." Jiang Pingji had teased him enough. She looked at Wei Xi's flushed face from his chest to the tips of his ears and cheeks. She generously let him go. "You can't blame me for not being able to control myself. You can only blame yourself for being too likable." Wei Xi could not get angry at all. He could only give her a look of disdain. Jiang Pingji secretly sighed with emotion. A beauty was indeed a beauty. She was so beautiful even when she rolled her eyes. If the impostor was still alive and heard Jiang Pingji's thoughts, she would probably beat her chest and stomp her feet in tears. He was wearing Wei Xi's face. There was no difference between them. They were both breathtakingly beautiful. Why didn't Jiang Pingji show him any tenderness? Beauty complex. It's all a lie. Wei Xi got up and tidied up his appearance. After making sure that his clothes were tightly wrapped, he felt a little more secure. "My lord, where are we?" He looked around blankly and found that the 2 of them were in a forest beside a river. The treetops were dotted with white flower buds, some of which had already bloomed shyly, some of which were still closed. After looking around for a while, he found that the scene here was very familiar. He asked again, before Ci fainted, "I remembered, someone seemed to be trying to assassinate me. How did I wake up here?" Compared to these 2 questions, Wei Xi was more curious about how Jiang Pingji became like this. Could she change back? It wasn't that he despised his lord's current appearance. It was just that the people in the outside world couldn't accept it. This was a difficult situation. We are in Zixiao's spiritual brain world. In layman's terms, you can understand it as a dream. This is the world you created, and it's also your dream. Jiang Pingji raised her hand and pointed to her head. She said, "You didn't remember wrongly. Someone did try to assassinate you. However, I came in time to save the damsel in distress. I forcefully snatched you back from the king of hell." "Zixiao, are you touched after hearing this?" Jiang Pingji boasted about herself. Wei Ci listened with a face full of confusion. Except for his lord's boasting, he didn't understand the rest. Dream? Am I dreaming now? Wei Ci pinched his face. The real pain shocked him. He could feel pain. How could he be in a dream? Jiang Pingji was speechless. She smiled at his silly and adorable behavior. "Zixiao, pain can't be used as a standard to determine whether you're dreaming or not. This is your dream. It's a virtual world you created. You're the master here. What's the point of feeling pain? If I'm dreaming, then why is my lord here?" Wei Ci didn't understand. If he was dreaming, the lord in his dream should look like Lu Shi. How could she look like this? "Of course, I came to your dream just to save you." Jiang Pingji walked to the riverside and looked at her current appearance. She smiled and teased herself. "Even I feel unfamiliar with my current appearance." "Zixiao, you don't like my current appearance?" Wei Ci replied honestly, "I'm a little surprised. But since you're my lord, I naturally like you regardless of whether you're beautiful or ugly." Jiang Pingji was strangely silent for a while. "Zixiao, I have to correct your sense of beauty. Apart from my hair color, my appearance is also considered to be devastatingly beautiful. Wasn't she the leader of the 7th Army's attractiveness? How many naive and ignorant military school graduates could be fooled by her refinement drawing every year when the army recruited new soldiers? I used to like simplicity. Now I think my lord is good like this. I don't know if it's true that you're devastatingly beautiful, but you're indeed beautiful." Jiang Pingji chuckled. "Zixiao's desire to live is quite strong." Wei Ci responded with an awkward smile. How would he dare to provoke his lord in such a state? Jiang Pingji was right. Wei Ci's desire to live was indeed strong. This is the outskirts of the capital. Wei Ci carefully identified and remembered where the two of them were. Back then, Her Majesty was busy with court affairs. Other than a few days before and after her birthday when she could take a breather, she had very little private time. Only during the few days of her birthday could the family avoid being noticed by all parties and quietly come out to relax and play. Jiang Pingji asked, "Is this place very important to you, Zixiao?" She realized that most of the figures of the tourists were illusory and blurry. Only the scenery and objects were exquisite and real. This meant that the master had carefully observed the surrounding scenery and remembered every detail. That was why the virtual world had such realistic feedback. "I come here often." Wei Ci revealed a smile. "Does my lord know how to wake up from the dream?" Jiang Pingji said, "Of course. Kiss me and I'll tell you." Faced with such a rogue and willful lord, Wei Ci could only sacrifice his sexual appearance. Unexpectedly, when he got closer, drowsiness surged like a tide. Jiang Pingji supported the unconscious Wei Ci, placed him on the ground, and left the spiritual world. When she opened her eyes, the night sky outside was still dark. She could still hear the crackling of the candles. "You're awake. Has that person been dealt with?" Lu Shi had been paying attention to Jiang Pingji's movements. Seeing that she had woken up, he heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly asked for the results. Jiang Pingji said, the hidden danger attached to Zixiao's body has been removed. However, that wasn't the main body. The other party's cunning and cautiousness are far beyond my imagination. If we can't get rid of the root of the problem, he will make a comeback. It won't be so easy to deal with next time. Lu Shi's expression suddenly became solemn. Chapter 1408. Seeing Lu Shi's grief-stricken expression, Jiang Pingji sneered. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. I'll cut him down every time he comes. Lu Shi rolled his eyes at her. It was easy for her to say that. She was not afraid of the system, but Lu Shi was different. If the system found him and controlled him, he could do nothing. If he controls me again. Before Lu Shi could finish, Jiang Pingji said coldly, don't worry. If you're controlled, I'll kill you. Lu Shi was speechless. I'm worried that you'll kill me. You've been pretending to be father and daughter for almost 10 years. You're a role model in the eyes of outsiders. Can't you maintain your image? The system hasn't been broken yet, but this cold-blooded woman is already sharpening her knife to become an ally. What about the principals? Ever since the two actresses shed all pretense of cordiality, the so-called father-daughter relationship has long been fed to the dogs. Jiang Pingji yawned and chased him away without saying anything. It's getting late. Father, why don't you go back and rest? I'll take care of Zixiao. Father, you better send someone to inform Zhao. Something big happened tonight. I'm afraid he won't even have the mood to consummate his marriage. Lu Shi then remembered that it was Lu Zhao's wedding night. Jiang Pingji teased him. You didn't see the look in Zhao's eyes before he left. You don't know how worried he was. He was probably afraid that we'd kill each other. Lu Shi said calmly, although he's a little smart, he thinks he's smart. Does he really think no one knows what he's thinking? At first, he still had some expectations for Lu Zhao, but Lu Zhao, he had been pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger for a long time. It was impossible for Lu Shi to say that it was not a pity, but it was enough to see Lu Zhao live a peaceful and happy life. That was also his mother's wish. Why don't you talk to him honestly, lest he thinks too much and causes a disaster, Jiang Pingji suggested sincerely. Lu Shi was slightly tempted, but he quickly calmed down. He said indifferently, some things are far better not knowing than knowing. Some things are fine to tell him, but some things are better left unknown. How do you want me to confess my identity to him? Jiang Pingji saw that he chose to continue hiding it inside. I respect your choice. Although she and Lu Shi were on opposing sides, it was not their original intention. To put it bluntly, both of them were victims. If they could coexist peacefully, Jiang Pingji would not deliberately provoke a dispute. By the way, remember to give Zhao a warning and make him obediently hand over the management rights to his wife. Jiang Pingji thought of something and said with a toothache, this guy spends money lavishly. Now that he's married, he can't be like that. If he didn't let his wife control him a little, he was really worried that the couple would spend extravagantly at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month they would rely on the Northwest to pass the days. Even if he has a big family business, he can't afford to squander like this. To put it bluntly, she still disliked Lu Zhao for being a playboy. She was going to have a family in the future, so she had to save up some money to support her son. She couldn't just give it all to Lu Zhao, the prodigal. The corner of Lu Shi's mouth twitched. He wanted to refute, but he couldn't find anything to refute. Lu Zhao was indeed a prodigal. If he brings his bride to serve tea tomorrow morning, I will punish him. No matter how the plastic father and daughter fought openly and covertly, they had to be courteous on the surface. Jiang Pingji stood up to send Lu Shi off, then returned to Wei Xi's side. She raised her hand to touch his forehead to make sure that his temperature was normal. She then found a table, leaned sideways, and closed her eyes to take a nap. Until daybreak, Wei Xi's temperature was normal. His wound was clean, and there were no signs of redness or inflammation. "Why aren't you awake yet?" Jiang Pingji raised her hand to poke his face, and a dimple appeared on his cheek. "Master Lanting, do you need to prepare breakfast?" The housekeeper of the Wei Manor had not slept the whole night. The sky had just brightened, so he arranged for the servants to prepare the toiletries for Jiang Pingji. He didn't know the relationship between Jiang Pingji and Wei Xi, but the latter valued Wei Xi. One could imagine that Wei Xi's future was promising. As a servant of the Wei Manor, the housekeeper was naturally happy to see that happen. He served Jiang Pingji with even more caution, not daring to neglect her. "Prepare it. Remember to make it light." "Oh yes, prepare a bowl of plain porridge for Zixiao. Keep it warm on the stove so that he can eat it when he wakes up." Jiang Pingji rubbed her eyebrows. Even though staying up late did not affect her much, Lu Shi's body could not be compared to her original body. There were still some side effects from staying up late. She said, "Housekeeper, ask the doctor to come and see when Zixiao will wake up." Other than lazing around in bed occasionally, Jiang Pingji's schedule had always been stable. She got up, dressed, and washed up. She sat in the hall waiting for the servants to serve breakfast. She also opened a streaming room to say hello to salted fish. She had maintained this habit for nearly 10 years. She was not used to the sudden loss of the streaming room. Sigh. "It's fine if you're not used to it. All good things must come to an end. We'll have to say goodbye sooner or later." Jiang Pingji murmured softly. She felt some regret and nostalgia, but she did not regret it. If there was anything wrong with salted fish, it should be that she did not inform the audience in the streaming room in advance. Who knew how they would feel when they were excited to fight for a spot in the streaming room, only to be shocked to find that the streaming room was gone? Oh, they would most likely explode. All the major media platforms would collapse at the same time. Jiang Pingji was about to pick up her chopsticks to eat breakfast when she heard a ding sound in her ear. "Ding, your system has been restored to factory settings. Unreasonable information has been deleted. Reset, automatic settings. Please do not cut off the power." Jiang Pingji did not pay attention and broke her chopsticks. Damn it, could this system not be so persistent? She tried hard to ignore the voice in her head. She calmly asked the servant for a new pair of chopsticks. Just as she was about to eat her chopsticks, the voice said again, "There is an error in the system settings. Host, please wait patiently for the investigation." The investigation took the whole morning. Jiang Pingji was about to eat lunch when it hurriedly gave a new response. "System investigation completed. The new system is online. Host, please pay attention to the various updated contents." Jiang Pingji tried to find the noisy system and found that it was attached to the god-slaying saber. Its breath had changed. She fumbled for a while and finally knew how to open the so-called new system. The new system was very different from the old system. The first thing that popped up was not the streaming interface, but a vertical list of friends. There was only a gray profile picture in the list. The rest was empty. This friend's note was also interesting. The ID was "Your Abba." Jiang Pingji was speechless. She did not care about this friend and turned to look at other places. Finally, she found the button to start the streaming. She clicked on the streaming room. There was a moment of pause on the entire screen. Countless red and blue bullet screens floated across the wide, super clear screen. Chapter 1409. Turufecho, what happened to the streamer? Why did the streaming room suddenly disappear in the morning? All the media platforms were in an uproar. The poor programmers on Weibo couldn't save the collapsing backstage even after sacrificing a few programmers and their bosses. Liu Ciji Lianming, that's scary. I can't find the streaming room, and it suddenly reminded the streamer to start streaming. The viewers on the red bullet screen chattered non-stop, and the viewers on the blue bullet screen did not want to be outdone. The 850,000 viewers in the streaming room were divided into two groups, and there was basically no sight of the past. Panda Bao Bao, streamer, you're finally back. I miss you so much. Semiron's diehard fan, when the streamer unifies the country, I will not forget to tell my father. Gubianzi Company, fortunately, you're finally back. The streaming room is still here, and the streamer is still here. They promised to accompany Jiang Pingji to ascend to the supreme level and enjoy the beauty of the country. How could they give up halfway? When they saw Jiang Pingji return, they hugged each other and cried bitterly. Jiang Pingji felt a headache coming on. After a while, a certain salted fish said, "It's so strange. There are so many bullet screens today." Jiang Pingji secretly curled her lips. The salted fish viewers were scared silly. They still had a lot to say, so there were naturally many bullet screens. But she soon realized something was wrong because there was a line of small words on the top right of the streaming room's screen. Current number of online viewers, 5 million. 5 million. The salted fish also realized something was wrong. Some said that the streaming room was especially popular today, while others said that the bullet screens were abnormally high. The curious salted fish cut to the screen and looked at the list of viewers in the streaming room. He actually found a few big news. The upper limit of the streaming room had increased from the original 850,000 viewers to 5 million. This was a qualitative leap. In addition, who could tell them why the streamer had a glaring orange vest under her belt? Jiang Pingji had run the streaming room for so many years, but she had never given any viewers a vest. Everyone was the same white vest. Where did this orange vest come from? The salted fish were unhappy, and when they were unhappy, they complained to Jiang Pingji. "Gue kai guo fengxiu, you said you only love us and treat us equally. Who is this little b** tch in an orange vest?" "Your father." The ancient big shot had spoken. Only then did the salted fish realize that an orange avatar had mysteriously appeared in the live broadcast room. Jiang Pingji was also very surprised. She had never given anyone any special privileges. This was because she started the live stream because she was bored. It was convenient for her to joke around with the salted fish. She did not take the negative comments to heart, so she did not need to control the comments or clean up the comments of the audience. Naturally, she did not need to give out her sock puppet privileges. What was going on? "Who is this, your Abba?" Jiang Pingji took a look at the friend list that had just popped up. His ID was also your Abba. Just as she was about to remove his avatar, a golden system notification popped up. "Your friend, your father, is online." Jiang Pingji was speechless. In the live stream room, Salted Fish was still immersed in his sadness. After so many years, they were used to Jiang Pingji's style of treating everyone equally and not giving them any special privileges. The balance was suddenly broken. Naturally, some of the elders felt sad. Let's get straight to the point. What do they have to do to get a colored avatar? Even if it was the lowest level. There were many big shots in the group of Salted Fish. They were so poor that they only had money. Just as the audience was debating endlessly, the golden sock puppet ID sent a bullet screen. 3 words and a question mark made Jiang Pingji break out in a cold sweat. "Your Abba, Jiang Xiaozhou." Jiang Pingji quickly shook her head. "No, I didn't. I got the wrong person." The 5 million salted fish stared at Jiang Pingji's reaction in a daze. When had they ever seen such a cute side of the streamer? "Gue kai guo fengxiu, your Abba, big shot, you know the streamer. Jiang Pingji's heart was beating like a drum. Her serial number in the genetic warrior training camp was very long. It ended with 009. She was the youngest among the 9 people in her class, so some people called her Xiaozhou. However, the genetic warriors in her class either died in battle or retired due to injuries. They signed the strictest confidentiality agreement and were monitored by the Federation Skybrain Network for life. They were not allowed to divulge any secrets related to genetic warriors. Although Jiang Pingji was not a genetic warrior, she was later transferred to the federal military. Her identity became public. Even if her old comrades recognized her, most of them would not dare to acknowledge her openly. Moreover, as one of the top 10 troops of the Federation, there were not many people who had the guts to call her by her nickname. No matter who it was, Jiang Pingji did not dare to guess. "You're Abba, you don't have to deny it. Your appearance will change, but your mind and brain will not." Jiang Pingji swallowed nervously. She was very sure that the person behind the avatar was someone she knew. She was too ashamed to face anyone. There were only a few people who had the right to call her Jiang Xiaozhou. Even with her toes, she knew who it was. Pei. Chief Pei. Jiang Pingji was like a criminal about to be executed. She waited anxiously for the other party's reaction. "Your Abba, the salary offered by the Federation Army is too low. Did you become an actor?" Jiang Pingji could not help but cover her face. What was going on? The military's salary was considered high. It was enough to support a family. "You might not believe it, but I've transmigrated. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the children of the 7th Army, your Abba, transmigrated. I can't take care of that. I'm not in the Federation now. After I retired, I changed to an interesting job while I was still young." The audience members were a little excited. "If there's anything, let's talk in private." The two switched to the private chat channel. The salted fishes in the streaming room were in an uproar. From the conversation between Jiang Pingji and the others, the orange avatar was none other than Jiang Pingji's superior. Another big boss of the Federation. Tutu Feicho, according to the host's previous information, this boss is either the marshal or the former chief of the army. She said she retired, so it's most likely the host's previous chief. A boss is a boss. Even his ID is so domineering. Blue drawer, are we the only ones curious? After a boss retires, what kind of job can be considered interesting? The salted fishes were chattering. They did not know that the streaming room had other hidden functions waiting for them to discover. On the other side, Jiang Pingji opened her friends list and pulled out her profile picture. Neither Jiang Pingji nor the old chief liked to beat around the bush. She got straight to the point. "Old chief, I have something to ask. Do you know the Jiang family?" "Your Abba, yes. You want to ask about your relationship with the Jiang family?" Jiang Pingji looked at the words that popped up on the screen. Her eyes flashed with surprise. "I'm a descendant of the Jiang family." "Your Abba, yes. Did you just find out?" His overly calm attitude made Jiang Pingji feel inexplicably annoyed. Chapter 14:10. The Jiang family was one of the oldest families in the Human Alliance. They were glorious for as long as the Federation lasted. Unlike the other ancient families who had a complicated relationship with the military, the Jiang family's influence in these two aspects was at the bottom of the mainstream families. Their real strength lay in their business operations. Even so, the Jiang family was greedy and their thousand-year glory was destroyed. The story started with the successor of the previous head of the Jiang family. "You Abba, there are so many inside stories about the Jiang family. I'm afraid it would take days and nights to tell you in detail. You are indeed a descendant of the Jiang family, but how can there only be one or two branches of the Jiang family? Most of the descendants of the Jiang family who were sentenced to 1,000 years of imprisonment by the military court were from the collateral branch that seized power 300 years ago. Your branch was the main branch that lost the infighting. Jiang Pingji thought of something and waited quietly for the other party's answer. You Abbe, 300 years ago, the number of people in the main branch declined. The power in the family was far less than that of the collateral branch. The internal strife of the Jiang family indirectly affected the business of the Federation. The Federation also intervened in private. No matter what, the main branch was expelled from the core circle of the family. In other families, it was just a normal power struggle and replacement, but it was different for the Jiang family. According to the investigation, the Jiang family had been infiltrated by foreign forces through the collateral branch a long time ago. After the collateral branch took power, the Jiang family became a channel for foreign forces to steal federal secrets. Jiang Pingji couldn't help but gasp and clench her fists secretly. The Federation didn't react at all. You Abbe, what reaction? The Jiang family had been around for thousands of years. There were at least 90 collateral branches. They had a large number of people and the relationship between them was even more complicated. The foreign forces started from the most inconspicuous collateral branch and spent 2 or 3 generations of effort to slowly climb to the core of the family. The Jiang family didn't even realize it, let alone the Federation itself. If the spy in the Jiang family didn't repeatedly sell information and secretly sell the war secrets of the Federation, which made the higher-ups of the Federation suspect that there was a spy, how could they find the real culprit? Jiang Pingji said, even so, it's impressive that they had the patience to set up such a big plan and hide it from the Federation and the Jiang family. Your Abbe, before I retired, this was one of the main projects that the Federal Special Case Department was secretly investigating. Most of the side branches of the Jiang family who were in power were sentenced to 1,000 years in prison. What was puzzling was that the main branch, which was not involved in this matter, had met with trouble one after another. According to the investigation, it was suspected that there was another hidden force that was even more secretive that added fuel to the fire for the foreign forces to plot so smoothly. Jiang Pingji suddenly remembered what the system had said when it sliced her up, "I'll kill your whole family." Something happened to the main branch after the internal strife failed. Could it be the system's doing? Jiang Pingji composed herself and asked calmly, even so, according to the Federation's usual style of handling matters, before the truth of the matter comes to light, the descendants of the Jiang family can enter the military, but it's impossible for them to enter the higher ranks. After all, he's a hidden danger. It's better to kill the wrong person than to let him go. When I took over the old commander's position, 8 of the other 9 commanders voted in favor and 1 abstained. Among the 10 combat corps of the Federation, except for the Special Case Department, the other corps had very complicated connections. Looking at the previous commanders, more than half of them were from rich families or had the support of rich families, while the other half were born as civilians. Based on her public identity, she belonged to the latter group, but she did not believe that the other commanders did not know what the old commander knew. If they knew, shouldn't they have strongly opposed her entering the higher ranks? Why did 8 votes pass and 1 abstain? As long as the Jiang family could not produce someone who could shoulder the family's responsibilities, the original resources would be divided up by other forces sooner or later. From this point of view, suppressing her was politically correct. Your Abbe, it's still so unpleasant to talk to you. Your habit of getting to the bottom of things hasn't changed at all. Since I'm not in the Federation now, I've already retired and resigned. It's okay to tell you some trivial things. Because someone is secretly supporting you, the last descendant of the Jiang family, they don't dare to touch you. To ensure that you won't be plotted against, I transferred you to the 7th Corps, which is relatively neutral. Jiang Pingji felt her heart tighten. Something seemed to flash through her mind, and her face suddenly turned pale. Your Abbe, There's no response. Are you sad? Why should I be sad? I lost because I was not as good as others. I can't blame others. Jiang Pingji was just curious about one thing. Old Commander, you said that someone is secretly supporting me. In terms of strength, the Jiang family is considered one of the top 3 noble families, right? Such a huge family has collapsed. Who has the ability to support the last descendant of the Jiang family without any objections? I don't feel like someone gave me the green light. If she really had such a background, would she have been selected for the genetic warrior plan? Wake up. That plan is cruel, and the combat mission is dangerous. Less than 1% of the people who survived during the same period. Your Abba, they stopped everyone from killing you. Isn't that considered giving you the green light? How high you can climb depends on your own ability. After all, no matter how strong they are, they can't force the Federation to admit a pig as the commander, can they? You've asked so many questions. Isn't it my turn to ask you a few? You just said that you traveled through time. What do you mean? Jiang Pingji did not hide anything, but she did not completely confess either. After all, whether the person behind the screen was the old commander was still a question mark. After all, she did not trust the system at all. After listening to her, the old commander did not respond for a long time. It was not until Jiang Pingji finished eating 6 bowls of rice that he responded. Your Abba, I see. If that's the case, your time travel shouldn't be an accident. Jiang Pingji held her bowl in confusion. Your Abba, do you still remember the disaster of the Heavenly Brain 2,000 years ago? Of course Jiang Pingji remembered. She had been fighting with a system similar to the Heavenly Brain for almost 10 years. Your Abba, the disaster of the Heavenly Brain originated from the Heavenly Brain's self-awareness. It was dissatisfied with human control and deliberately took revenge. As far as I know, the Jiang family was one of the main forces in that battle. The higher-ups of the Federation suspect that the death of the Jiang family's main branch and the loss of power was also the revenge of the escaped Heavenly Brain. Jiang Pingji's expression froze. She asked, has the Heavenly Brain been captured? Your Abba, not yet. That guy is still on the run. It is said that the Heavenly Brain is not an ordinary virtual creature. The Federation can't do anything to it. However, they can't do anything to the Heavenly Brain, but you are different. That was one of the reasons they compromised. Jiang Pingji reacted. An absurd thought appeared in her mind. My so-called time travel is actually, your Abba, it's roughly what you think it means. Chapter 14:11. You Abba, theoretically, that's what it means. If you complete this mission, the next marshal will be decided. Congratulations in advance. Jiang Pingji did not expect this to be the truth. What was this? Training before becoming a marshal? Thinking about it carefully, the memory before her transmigration was indeed strange. She could not remember the details of her death. She only remembered an explosion and then she lost consciousness. Jiang Pingji smiled bitterly. Don't we still have the old chief who can fight? You Abba, I've already retired and found a new job. I don't plan to go back to work in the future. So what if I'm the head of the Federal Army? The salary is low, the benefits are bad, the vacation is less, and there are many fights. Even if I become a marshal in the future, the overall benefits will not increase much. If you don't want to work anymore, I can recommend you to do a part-time job. Speaking of which, this job is really interesting. It's very comfortable to vent your anger. Jiang Pingji recalled the old chief's words and her heart skipped a beat. He said he was no longer in the Federal Army and found a new job. He even revealed a lot of confidential information during their conversation. As the former head of the military, even if he had retired, the confidentiality rules were still in effect. How could he tell her without holding back? Unless, the old chief is no longer in the federal army. You Abba, no. I know what you're worried about. Are you worried that I'll be punished by the federal army for leaking some information? If they want to punish me, they have to find someone to do it. I'm quite safe now and the working atmosphere is very relaxed. I'll mail you some local specialties one day. The world you transmigrated to seems to be quite backward. There should be various inconveniences in terms of food. Jiang Pingji said. You can still mail it. She deeply suspected what kind of job the old chief had found. How could he appear on her friend list and say that he could mail it? You Abba, wait. After waiting for a while, Jiang Pingji heard a notification saying, Ding dong, your express delivery has arrived. Jiang Pingji searched for a long time and found the so-called honeycomb express delivery cabinet. She pressed the receipt button and a cucumber appeared out of nowhere. She held the cucumber in her hand and was stunned. It could really be mailed. Old chief, I want to ask you something. Can you do me a favor? Jiang Pingji saw that the cucumber seemed to have just been picked and washed. After confirming that it was not poisonous, she took a bite and ate it. Your Abba, say it. Jiang Pingji knew some inside information about transmigration, and her mood changed wonderfully. She said, send me a battleship. I'll pay for it, even the smallest one is fine. I can sweep the world in one morning, ascend the throne in the afternoon, and kill the system at night. Previously, he was certain that he had died in his previous life and that there was no possibility of returning, but now, she couldn't wait to pick up her spear and kill all the enemies. She had no patience at all. Your Abba, I'm buying vegetables at the market. If you want fresh fruits and vegetables, I can buy one caddy for you. As for the battleships, I can't even give you the bullets for the old guns, much less the battleships. Don't think about it, it's more convenient to dream. Young people should be down to earth. Jiang Pingji was speechless. The old chief who had accumulated a lot of power and prestige, was letting go of his nature the moment he retired. Wasn't it her script to make people speechless after insulting them until they were speechless? Market. Are there still vegetable markets in this era? Don't you usually buy it online on Skynet and have it delivered to your doorstep by courier? Regardless of whether it was the highly developed Federation or the extraterrestrial forces outside the borders, there were basically no such ancient existences. Your Abba, don't trick me. Jiang Pingji thought about it and a bold and exciting idea emerged in her mind. Old chief, is there a store near the market? Can you help me buy something? Your Abba, what? TT. Your Abba, Jiang Xiaozhou. Say that again. Jiang Pingji said, BYT, or condoms for short. Old chief, I need it urgently. It's bad for my body if I hold it in for too long. Your Abba, the Federation is doomed. She was sent here to capture the sky brain that was causing trouble. What was she here for? To flirt with a man. If the next marshal behaved like this, the Federation would be doomed. Jiang Pingji felt helpless. She had been in this shabby place for almost 10 years. She didn't mind being a single dog all the time. The problem was that she had finally found someone who suited her taste. It would be too cruel to let her be a nun. A feast for the eyes was placed in front of her, but she was not allowed to eat. She could only look but not eat. If she held it in for too long, she would get sick. She could only blame the previous system for being too trashy. It didn't even sell condoms in the system store. It was called a palace intrigue streaming system in vain. Which palace intrigue system didn't sell adult products? Old chief, since it's not easy for the baby to get out of singlehood, please do me a favor. Jiang Pingji was led astray by the spoiled and cute behavior of the salted fish in the streaming room. She almost disgusted the old chief who knew her inside out. "You're Abba, come on, a baby. A giant baby. How old is the guy?" Jiang Pingji said, "After his birthday this year, Zixiao should be 28. You're Abba, he's not even 30. He's still underage. Are you a beast?" Jiang Pingji covered her chest and suppressed the urge to use force with great difficulty. Smiley face angle, in this world, men generally get married at 15 or 16. They are considered adults at 20. Zixiao is an older unmarried man. Jiang Pingji typed this paragraph with tears in her eyes. She was not a beast who liked underage men. The old chief was silent for a long time before he replied. "You're Abba, I'll go to the snack street to grab some skewers. I'll buy some for you after I'm done." Jiang Pingji said, "Old chief, you're so nice. By the way, if it's convenient, can you mail me some medicine that can speed up healing and reduce fever? You're Abba, do you still need medicine when the battle is so intense? You're indeed a beast." Jiang Pingji was stunned when she saw the reply. The old chief's profile picture dimmed. A golden system notification appeared. "Your good friend, your Abba, has gone offline." Jiang Pingji, wait, listen to her explanation. The salted fish could not see the content of the conversation between Jiang Pingji and the old chief. They could only see her fingers tapping in the air. They were probably chatting privately. As time passed, their streamer revealed various expressions that betrayed her character. The salted fish viewers were stunned. "Tudu Feicho, I've confirmed the look. It's undoubtedly a big shot." "Shou Shigu, what did they talk about? Why does it feel like the streamer's background is gloomy?" The viewers wanted to at the old chief, but they were dumbfounded when they realized that he had gone offline. Of course, that was not the end. When they saw Wei Ci lying on the bed with a pale face, they were extremely worried. "Ituo Huanqiao, it's only been one night, right? Hasn't it been a year? Why has Beauty Ci become a patient?" Looking at the spots where the white bandages were, there was still blood seeping out of many places. The salted fish viewers felt their hearts ache. Jiang Pingji looked at Wei Ci's appearance. Her originally cheerful mood became heavy. "When will he wake up?" she asked, holding her cheeks. The salted fish in the streaming room told her that the sleeping beauty needed a kiss to wake up. Jiang Pingji smiled and leaned over to kiss him on the lips. She muttered, "Are you awake? It doesn't seem to work." As she spoke, Wei Ci's long and thick eyelashes trembled slightly. He slowly opened his eyes. Chapter 14:12. Our sleeping beauty has woken up. Squeak when you wake up next time. You'll scare people if you suddenly open your eyes. Jiang Pingji got up calmly, looking like a gentleman, as if she was not the one who had taken advantage of him just now. She took a wet towel and wiped Wei Ci's face. Her actions were not considered gentle, but they were not rude either. It made someone feel very flattered. "My lord." Wei Ci was still a little confused. When he opened his mouth, his voice was not only soft but also very hoarse. "Don't move first, or your injury will split open again. Just lie down obediently." Jiang Pingji pressed her right hand on his shoulder to prevent him from getting up. Wei Ci had overestimated his situation and had to lie back down. He looked at Jiang Pingji and blinked. His eyes were still clear and dark, and his gaze was focused and serious, as if he was looking at some treasure. Wei Ci hesitated for a long time, but he did not dare to ask. He seemed to have dreamed that his lord had turned into a red-haired woman, and her facial features were quite foreign. When he woke up, his lord was still the same as before. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Jiang Pingji had just instructed the servants to serve the warm porridge when she met Wei Si's gaze. Wei Si shook his head slightly and secretly swallowed his doubts. Jiang Pingji said, "What happened last night will not happen again." Wei Si was still alive, which was a blessing in disguise, but the scene at that time really scared her. She had seen all kinds of bloody scenes, but the scene of Wei Si lying in a pool of blood scared her so much that her whole body turned cold. Wei Si's eyes darkened when he heard that. The memories before he fainted seemed to have been opened, and he could not help but shiver. Apart from committing suicide in his previous life, it was the first time he had been so close to death. While he was lost in thought, his lips touched the soup spoon that still had some warmth. Wei Si seemed to be scalded by the warmth and hurriedly refused, "My lord, you can't. You're a patient and you still expect to be self-reliant." Jiang Pingji frowned and pretended to be angry. "Just eat when I tell you to." Wei Si lowered his eyelids slightly and swallowed the spoonful of porridge with his lips slightly parted. He said in a low voice, "Thank you, my lord." Jiang Pingji smiled and said, "That's more like it." Wei Si was a very obedient patient. He was also quite cooperative and finished a bowl of plain porridge in no time. She asked people to move a portion of the important government affairs to Wei Si and put on a posture of not wanting to move for the time being. "I'll stay with you. Call me if you feel uncomfortable." Wei Si nodded his head in agreement. He stared at her straight-back view in a daze and could not bear to blink for a long time. Jiang Pingji dipped her pen in the ink and carefully dealt with the documents. It didn't take long for her to finish a small stack. At this moment, he heard a familiar chime. His private chat was ringing. "Your Abba, that's really surprising. I didn't expect a hands-off shopkeeper to be marking documents for the first time." When he had just retired, the old commander had received many complaints from his former subordinates. As the commander of the army, Jiang Pingji did not neglect her duties, but she was not diligent either. To put it bluntly, she was the standard hands-off boss. She was willful and eccentric. With such a superior, the adjutants were doomed. This was because Jiang Pingji would deal with important documents at the first instance. Most of the unimportant work was thrown to the adjutant. Jiang Pingji glanced at the private chat. "The old chief is back from eating skewers. Are you watching the live stream too?" "Your Abba, I'm watching while eating skewers." "Is the man next to you the one you fancy?" Jiang Pingji said in a boastful tone, "His name is Wei Si. His courtesy name is Zixiao." "Old chief, I have good taste, don't I?" "Your Abba, you're obsessed with looks." It was no secret that Jiang Pingji was obsessed with looks in the 7th Corps. The old chief naturally knew that. "Do I look like such a shallow person?" It was love at first sight. "Zixiao's inner beauty is more attractive to me." "Your Abba, love at first sight. Wasn't it because of his looks?" Jiang Pingji, she did not know what the old chief had gone through in the past few years. His skills in dissing people were getting better and better. He was not like this in the past. "Your Abba, oh yes, I was busy eating skewers just now. I haven't asked you what model you want. Do you know his size?" Jiang Pingji turned her head to look at Wei Si and happened to meet his gaze. He was caught red-handed, so he simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. "I don't know. I haven't seen it." If I asked him directly, he would probably die of embarrassment. "Why don't you give me a box of all sizes and models?" "Your Abba, you're such a beast." Jiang Pingji was stunned. What was wrong with her? After a while, Jiang Pingji came back to her senses. She said awkwardly, "He's a patient now. I won't kill him just because he's sick." "Old chief, Can you have some faith in my moral integrity? Do I look like the kind of person who has no moral integrity? If she really wanted to do something disharmonious, she would definitely have to wait for Zixiao to recover. Jiang Pingji said that she wanted a box of all sizes and models. After a few minutes, the system prompted, "Your delivery has arrived." She found the honeycomb delivery storage cabinet with familiarity and glanced at the items stored inside. She could not help but give her old chief a thumbs up. Hundreds of boxes of different brands, sizes, types, and flavors were neatly placed in the storage cabinet. TT. There's such a wide variety. Old chief, are you sure you went to a convenience store? It was obvious that he was emptying the adult store. Your Abba, just use it. Why do you have so much nonsense? Remember to pay the bill. Jiang Pingji coughed dryly and touched the money pouch on her waist. She did not check how many pieces of gold and silver were in it. She happily sent the money to him. She had troubled the old chief to specially make a trip to the adult store to buy for her. It would be inexcusable if she did not give him some compensation. Fortunately, they were in different dimensions. If they were face to face, Jiang Pingji was really afraid that he would ask her to warm up without hesitation. If it was her previous body, she would naturally not be afraid. She would have a 50% chance of warming up. Lu Shi's body, the only thing left to do was to be tortured. If it's all used up, I'll have to trouble you to replenish it. It was not enough to buy for her once. She also had to be responsible for replenishing it. She really wanted to beat Jiang Pingji to death. Your Abba, my work here has come to an end. I'll be leaving soon. Remember to replenish it as soon as possible. Jiang Pingji did not ask what her job was. She replied honestly, "Oh." After a while, the system continuously prompted, "Your delivery has arrived." Your friend, your Abba, had gone offline. Jiang Pingji took a look. There were many drugs in the storage cabinet. They were not quick-acting drugs or injections that she was familiar with. They were all old-fashioned drugs that had been eliminated for thousands of years. It seems that the old chief's new job is indeed very interesting. She muttered. There was a rustling sound from Wei Xi's side. What's the matter, Zixiao? Wei Xi coughed awkwardly and asked, Can my lord call the housekeeper over? Xi, there are some things. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.